opinion.
Okay, thank you. And Councillor Smith?
Yes, it's in connection with agenda item 7, 97 Foley Road. I live at 21 Vernon Park Road, which adjoins the 97 Foley Road, and I know the applicant and his wife, so I think it would be best if I leave the room for that item.
Okay, thank you very much, Councillor Smith. Is that everyone? Yep. Okay, thank you. Okay, so now we'll go to the minutes of the previous planning committee. This was on the 13th of February. If I just go through it page by page, page 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and then just the duration on the back, 8. No, so everyone's happy that they're a true record. That's great. Thank you, Margaret, for the minutes as usual. We didn't have any site visits today. Just a reminder that if you do want a site visit, please let us know. I think it's by the Monday, is it, Paul? Yeah. For another committee. Margaret, do we have public participation or representation, please?
Yes, Chair, there's no public participation, but we do have public representation on the 3 applications on the agenda. Tom Lock for Foley Road, Haj Minaz for Bransford Road and Adam Townsend for Carden Street. Thank you.
Great, thank you. Okay, so if Tom Lock, if you'd like to come forward and be ready. We start with the officer, don't we? Yeah, we're going to start with the officer presentation first, and this is Rebecca. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. So the committee are notified that since the publication of the report, a revised proposed site plan has been received, marked revision A, which shows some very minor amendments to the cycle parking and bin stores. So agenda item 7 concerns the planning application at 97 Folly Road, application reference 24/00921/4. Planning permission is sought for a variation of condition 2 of planning approval reference 21/00624/FUL, which was for the demolition of an existing garage and the erection of 1 new dwelling. Planning permission was previously approved on the 5th of July 2021. The applicant has since decided to change the design and provide a passive house, which is a leading international design standard, delivering high standards of comfort, health and minimised energy use from buildings. Whilst the construction methods of passive house buildings vary, they have some features in common, including far greater insulation than typical properties found in the UK, triple glazing with insulated frames, impressive air tightness levels and mechanical ventilation with heat recovery system attached. In terms of the site location, the site is situated on the western side of Folly Road at the end of a cul-de-sac. The site boundary is at the end of long gardens to the rear of semi-detached properties on Vernon Park Road and opposite a locally listed terrace on the eastern side of Folly Road. To the north of the site is the host property, the existing 97 Folly Road, and the proposed property would become 97A Folly Road. To the north of 97 Folly Road is Christopher Whitehead School, Sixth Form College and associated car park. The site is not within a conservation area and does not contain any statutory listed buildings. This slide shows an aerial image of the site prior to the demolition of the existing garage, which is shown under the red arrow. The next slide shows another aerial image of the site from a different angle. The locally listed terrace can clearly be seen along with a number of trees within the surroundings, within the gardens of 97 Folly Road and Vernon Park Road. And this slide shows a final aerial image from a slightly different angle, but again depicting the properties on Vernon Park Road, the locally listed terrace to the north, and Christopher Whitehead's sixth form to the northwest of the site. Officer site visit photographs are shown on the following slides. This shows the site of the proposed new dwelling. This is the view at the entrance to the site, looking towards the gardens of properties on Vernon Park Road, which you can see has existing fencing at the boundary as well as trees. This shows the view down Folly Road, including part of the locally listed terrace and the remainder of the street. It should be noted that planning permission has already been granted for a dwelling in this location. Whilst the design is changing, the scale and height remain very similar to that approved. The current slide shows the pre-existing site plan and the approved site plan as approved under the previous planning permission, reference 21/00624/FUL. The next slide shows a comparison between the approved site plan and the proposed site plan. As you can see, the footprint of the building is moving slightly and will be further away from the boundary with gardens on Vernon Park Road. It will be parallel to the existing house at 97 Folly Road. The length of the property is extended slightly, but not significantly. The proposed property will still have 3 bedrooms and 3 parking spaces to the front, and there are no changes to the approved parking arrangement. Cycle parking for 3 bicycles is to the front within a secure cycle store, and bin provision store is located down the side of the property. This slide shows the approved and proposed floor plans. This slide shows from the left of the screen the approved front elevation, the proposed front elevation, and to the right the existing house at 97 Folly Road. The height of the proposed house remains identical to the height of the existing house at 97 Folly Road and the previously approved. The property is well designed in a passive house style, which is a modern and highly sustainable form of architecture. This slide shows the approved south elevation and the proposed south elevation as would be viewed from properties on Vernon Park Road. It should, however, be noted that the gardens are of good depth, have rear fence boundaries, and also have trees at the end, which all contribute in screening the ground and first floor from view and protecting neighbouring privacy. The first floor side elevation is denoted on the plan as obscure glazed to the window and the 3 skylights within the sloped roof, which I think, given the angle and separation distances, there's not considered to be any significant adverse impact, especially when the nearest property is 22 metres away. So overall, we don't believe there's going to be any increased overlooking or loss of privacy. The next slide shows the proposed site section through Folly Road and the proposed site section through neighbouring rear gardens. As previously mentioned, and as shown on this slide, there's 22 metres of separation distance between the proposed property and the rear return of the nearest property on Vernon Park Road. The slide also notes that to an extent overlooking is mitigated by trees. This slide shows the revised proposed site plan. The dashed red line denotes the footprint of the approved house, overlaid on the footprint of that which is now proposed. This slide also shows the proposed hard and soft landscaping and the bin store and bike store, as well as the layout of the cars, which is unchanged from the previous permission. The next slide shows the proposed elevations from all sides. The north side elevation, which is a sheer brick wall, is adjacent to the existing house at 97 Folly Road and will not be visible in the surroundings. The material palette is also noted on this slide, being predominantly constructed in red brick to match the existing house at 97 Folly Road, with elements of grey brick at ground floor level, protruding brick features to the front, dark grey slate to the roof, high quality windows and PV panels to the roof. A biodiverse green roof is also proposed to the roof of the ground floor single-storey element to the rear. Finally, this slide shows an artistic impression of what the property will look like once built. So the key issues to consider in the determination of the application are the acceptability of the proposals having regard to the principle of development, impact on neighbouring amenity, design and heritage, energy and highways matters. In terms of the principle of development, this application is made under Section 73 of the Town and Country Planning Act 1990. This allows conditions associated with a planning permission to be varied or removed. A function of Section 73 applications is to seek a change where there is a relevant condition that can be varied. So, as set out in the committee report, there is no statutory definition as to the extent of the change, as set out in the PPG, and there's no statutory limit on the degree of change permissible to conditions under Section 73, but the change must relate to conditions and not to the operative part of the permission. The approach that should be taken to Section 73 applications is not to reassess the merits of the approved development, but to instead consider the merits of the condition or conditions that are proposed to be varied. So where an application under Section 73 is granted, the effect is the issuing of a new planning permission sitting alongside the original permission, which remains intact and unaltered. So this proposal seeks to vary condition 2, which is the approved plans of the previously granted planning permission, to amend the design and create a passive house. The main changes include, but are not limited to, alterations to the main design to achieve passive house standards, alterations to windows, alterations to the material composition, provision of PV panels to the roof, and roof lights to the side elevation of the roof. In terms of impact on neighbouring amenity, the proposed changes will not bring the proposed building any closer to neighbouring properties, and the general positioning and arrangement will be comparable to the original scheme. In terms of height, scale and mass, the proposed house is similar to the previously approved scheme, and the maximum height of 9.19 metres is exactly the same as the approved house and the existing house at 97 Folly Road, shown on the slide. Whilst the comments of neighbouring objectors are noted, officers considered that this is a contextual approval. Given the separation distance between the host property and neighbouring occupiers, it is not considered this proposal will give rise to any unacceptable impact on neighbouring living conditions once constructed. The roof lights are set at an angle and can be obscure glazed as secured by suitably worded condition. The parking situation is as per the approved plans. There's an existing consent for 3 spaces and there's still 3 spaces proposed. This provision is in line with the parking requirements set out in the Streetscapes Design Guide. And just to clarify, following an error noted in the design and access statement, the size of the parking spaces will be 4.8 metres by 2.4 metres as per the requirements of the Streetscapes Design Guide. Therefore, officers concluded there will be no unacceptable impact on parking in the road or any access issues over and above what has already been approved. And we have concluded that the proposals are in accordance with policies SWDP 4 and 21 of the South Worcestershire Development Plan. In terms of design and housing type, with regard to the housing mix, the approved and proposed are the same. The proposal still provides a single dwelling with 3 bedrooms. Policy 21 of the South Worcestershire Development Plan states that all development will be expected to be of a high design quality, which will need to integrate effectively with its surroundings in terms of form and function, reinforce local distinctiveness, and conserve where appropriate heritage assets and their settings. Of particular relevance to this application, it states that new and innovative designs will be encouraged and supported where they enhance the overall quality of the built environment. Policy 21B also notes that designs should have regard to sustainable construction approaches and ensure adaptability to change in the climate. In terms of siting layout and orientation, development proposals should take advantage of passive heating and cooling systems, offer shade as appropriate, and provide for the use of renewable energy. The Design Guide SPD also sets out that design should incorporate and maximise the use of renewable energy sources and demonstrate energy efficient methods in terms of heating, lighting and ventilation. This can be achieved by using passive solar design features to harness renewable sources of heat and light without relying on energy consuming technologies. The proposed passive house has solar panels and a green roof, along with other design features which I'll come on to, which make it highly sustainable. Whilst the design is modern and in a passive house architectural style, and to an extent is a significant change from the original approval, in the context of the site, which includes both historic and modern buildings, the proposal is considered to be acceptable. It's not considered there will be any harm to character or distinctiveness of the surrounding area, particularly taking account of its position within the street scene and the setback nature of the plot. It is considered to be an exciting and innovative design that will achieve high levels of sustainability. So the development accords to that extent with the expectations of the South Worcestershire Development Plan Policy 21 with regard to design. In terms of heritage matters, the NPPF details at paragraph 216 that the effect of an application on the significance of a non-designated heritage asset should be taken into account in determining the application. In weighing applications that directly or indirectly affect non-designated heritage assets, a balanced judgment will be required, having regard to the scale of any harm or loss and the significance of the heritage asset. In this case, there is a locally listed terrace opposite, which is regarded as a non-designated heritage asset. Officers have assessed the application and have concluded that there would be no harm to the locally listed terrace. Public benefits of the proposal include heritage benefits such as the removal of an old garage, improving the energy performance of the site with a building constructed to passive house standards, which contributes to the Council's climate change and sustainability targets of meeting net zero by 2030. The proposals therefore accord with policy SWDP 6, 14 and 27 of the South Worcestershire Development Plan. With regard to other considerations, in terms of security and crime prevention, a condition is attached requesting a secure by design inspection for certification, which should take place, and an informative draws the applicant's attention to the secure by design principles. With regard to refuse, adequate facilities are provided on site within a dedicated bin store, and refuse collection will be acceptable and in accordance with policy SWDP 33. Honing in on some more detailed design matters, in terms of the proposed design in relation to energy, the building envelope thickness has increased from 320 millimetres to 475 millimetres to reduce energy and heating demands of the dwelling. The property is orientated with the largest elevation facing south, which allows for 3 skylights to maximise natural solar gain. The proposed brick cladding approach prioritises low embodied energy for durability and longevity, with an emphasis on local suppliers to minimise transport emissions. Low energy systems, including 9 PV panels, solar thermal, air source heat pumps and battery storage are incorporated. A condition is also attached which requires the applicant to submit details of passive house certification. So when considering the planning balance, social, economic and environmental benefits include building a passive house which is highly sustainable with regard to energy efficiency, sustainability and moving toward net zero. The house also has some social benefit in providing a further home to add to the housing stock and for a family to live in. And there's also economic benefits primarily around construction and reducing costs of energy. All comments and objections that received as part of the consultation process have been considered along with all relevant material planning considerations. Officers have therefore concluded that subject to the recommended conditions, the proposals are acceptable with regard to the principle of development, impact on neighbouring amenity, design and heritage, energy and highways considerations. Officers therefore recommend that the application is granted subject to conditions, and this concludes the officer presentation. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Rebecca. Okay, so Tom, welcome. Thank you for coming. We always appreciate it when people come for our applications at committee. It does help members especially. You'll have 5 minutes. I'll time you, and at about 4:45 I'll start waving, and at 5 minutes you will need to stop. Okay, I'll start the clock as soon as you start speaking. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Tom Locke. I'm from Habitat Plus Architects, and we are the agents on this application. We're here speaking on behalf of our clients, Mr. and Mrs. Sparry, who are the applicants. Just to sort of reiterate some of the things that have been covered in the planning officer's report. This is for a Section 73 application, which we're looking to make design changes to the existing and extant planning application that was that got approval back in 2021 for a new dwelling. So, as has already been discussed, the principle of the development, including parking and access, has already been agreed and approved. Our clients approached us originally to talk about how they could make their existing permission more sustainable and also improve the design of it. They are keen to meet Passive House standards so that they can provide a home for themselves, which will be both low energy but also comfortable and healthy in the future. When we're looking at Passive House design, kind of the two key things that we like to look at are form factor and orientation. In both cases, these things are quite limited in the site that we're looking at. For instance, the large amount of south facing is into the gardens of Vernon Park Road, and therefore we have a limited amount of south facing glazing option available there, which is where we need our most passive solar gain. So in order to address that, we've done a few things which have already been covered in the planning officer's report. We are looking at enhanced levels of insulation to meet the Passive House standards, both in the walls and the roof, triple glazing, increased levels of air tightness and MVHR, all integrated to reduce the energy use and the energy demand of the house. We've also increased the glazing where possible on the west and east elevations in order to maximise the amount of solar gain, and also introduce the roof lights on the south roof to, again, get as much of that solar energy as we can. We have adjusted the roof design as well to make further an increased area facing south so that we can introduce more PV and renewable energy provision to the house. And we have carefully selected a palette of materials which is relevant to and also sensitive to the surrounding area and context. The dwelling is actually, for those of you who know the street, is actually set back from the street, and there's quite a lot of existing trees on the street. So actually there's quite a lot of screening from this, which means that any visual impact of this house will be quite limited anyway. Overall, the design has been developed to respect the scale and the materiality of the neighbouring buildings and of the street scene. And we're aiming to achieve a very high quality contemporary architectural building which is sustainable and in line with SWDP policies, particularly 21 and 27, which are design and renewable and low energy, low carbon energy. As mentioned, the key changes, the footprint of the building has changed slightly, but that has increased the distance from Vernon Park Road properties on the south. It also aligns with the existing house on 97. The roof form has been reconfigured, which not only gives us more south face for renewable energy, but it also helps to improve the amount of usable space within the roof in the top story. As we've talked about, we've increased the thermal performance of the building by increasing the insulation and making the external envelope as efficient as possible. We've also revised the internal layout to make it as efficient and accessible as possible, bearing in mind the future occupants' use. So these changes have been incorporated whilst maintaining a lot of the original principles of the approved scheme, and overall we feel that the design has been significantly improved, particularly from a sustainability point of view, but from a design point of view. So the revised design will create a high quality, low energy, comfortable, healthy home for our clients, whilst providing a high quality addition to the street and the surrounding areas. Throughout the process, we've worked closely with the planning officer and the planning department.
Sorry, that's your time up.
Thank you. I'd finished anyway. There we go.
Sorry, but you may have the chance to say what you were going to say through questions. Has anybody got any questions for Tom, please? If I start with Councillor Barnes, thank you.
Thank you, Chair. Will the way the house is built differ from what the standard house building that would be expected from the previous application? Are there any differences that will make it noisier or quieter or messier, anything like that?
So we always explore a number of different ways of constructing. typically we would explore timber frame, and that's what we've discussed with our client. And it also means that timber frame is very easy to construct and easy to and quick to build on site, so construction time can be reduced. It also means that elements can be constructed off site as well, which again reduces the amount of time and disturbance on site.
Councillor Udall?
Thank you, Chair. Just one question, I think, at this stage. Is there any justification or reasoning for the grey bricks on the ground floor of the building?
I think this was a design approach which was simply to add a feature to the lower floor to give it definition. That's
Okay. So it's not required for the
for passive
structural-
house. No,
Yeah,
it's not.
no,
No, it's
okay,
not
that's thank you
required.
very much.
I've got Councillor Agar. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. It's an extremely interesting design, Mr. Locke. We don't see many passive house designs here. I think my concern really is not about the building itself. Our landscape officer has queried whether or not there's a tree on site. And could you confirm whether there is or isn't and what quality it is? And whether or not you'd be willing to increase the amount of biodiversity net gain by putting a couple of trees on site if needed?
Yes, certainly. There's no tree on site, but we'd be very willing to explore, increasing that. And as been pointed out, we also have been looking at a green roof on the flat roof element as well to increase that biodiversity as well. So.
Thank you. Councillor Cross?
Thank you, Chair. Thank you very much for coming, and it's great to see Passive House. I think we need more applications like that, or either I'd welcome them. It's certainly very, the embodied footprint of a building is not just that of constructing it, but of operating it and owning it and decommissioning it at the end of building life. So really encouraging to see an improvement in air tightness in particular. My questions two, really. One is just to clarify in my mind that the prior approval had fully lapsed and therefore the new application put forward. And secondly, I just want to understand how everything will work at the front of the house. Am I right in understanding that there's no other access to the rear of the property? So therefore, all access has to be from the front. So with the revised arrangement, I don't see how the first two cars in will be able to come out once the third car is in place. I'm not quite sure how easy it'll be to get the bicycles into the bike store once the third car is in position and parked. And I'm not sure how easy it'll be to get the first two bikes in and out once the third bike is in. It all seems very, very complicated. And then I'm also separately wondering how the bin storage is. And if we add all these things together into the mix, I just want to understand how it works, please. So thank you. So just those 2 points about the timings and then how everything works. Thank you.
Thank you. So in terms of the existing application, the approval, this is extant as in that the work has begun by the removal and demolition of the existing garage. So in terms of the parking layout and so on, the parking layout follows in line with the approved parking layout of the original scheme. So we haven't changed that. And that's there has been some change to the bins and cycle arrangements, but in terms of the parking, that's as per the original.
If maybe the drawings weren't quite to scale, but sorry, I absolutely can't see my notes now. Thank you, that's Bell. It's a park rule. Yeah. Okay. Brilliant. Thank you. It is. Well, it'll help. It'll help, won't it? So, Chair, my question was just, I appreciate the scales may not be exact and it could be slightly open to interpretation, but it appears that the angles of the vehicles, that last vehicle has a greater angle with the new scheme than compared to the old.
Yeah, I think what we should do with that though, because there isn't a change, I think we should have that in the debate and you could question the officer about it, you know, if that's all right.
Yeah, I just wanted to understand that. It was come back on that, but yeah.
Yeah.
Whichever way is best way to sort it.
You think that's fair?
I'm happy to take
Or we can
to
take it
help
now.
now if it's
Yeah.
while it's fresh in members' minds. And through you, as the chair has quite rightly said, we're in a position where it's exactly the same as the previous approval, and the public speaker has made that clear. In terms of the arrangements, we do believe that there is adequate space to be able to get around the cars. Just because the layout of a car shows that it's a rectangle of 4.8 by 2.4 doesn't mean that a car will occupy the whole of that 2.4 by 4.8 rectangle, and I think members understand that. There will be a space around it, and ultimately it's a single house for a single family, and it's for that family to be able to organise themselves so that there is adequate space to be able to put bins and cycle in the right place. Just because the maximum amount of cars as shown has been able to be accommodated doesn't mean that that number of cars will be on site. What is, from an officer's point of view, is that it is clearly shown that there is a cycle store, that it is at the front, which is ideally located, and there is space for the bins, which again can be accessed from the rear and brought to the front. So from an officer's point of view, it doesn't change the approval, but we are satisfied that the revised design does provide adequate manoeuvring space for all of those domestic needs.
Yeah, thank you, Paul. I think that's really helpful. Have you got anything else, Councillor Cross? No? You happy?
Happy now, thank you.
Thank you. Okay. Councillor Kinsley, please.
Thank you, Chair. I did just want to clarify, just following on from the last point about cycles and bin storage. It's a little bit confusing on the plans because at the moment it indicates the cycle, the drawing for the cycles is at the bottom and the bins at the front, but it is actually the other way round, that you're proposing to have the bins at the far end and the cycles near the front, which I think would make more sense. That's not my main question, if that's just a...
Yes, so apologies. There was a last-minute adjustment when we saw the error on the plan. The cycles will be to the front and the bins will be to the rear.
Thank you for that. So I did just want to clarify one other point as well. So I'm looking at the design and access statement. I just wanted to understand the floor areas, just so I'm sort of understanding things appropriately. And on if you compare the approved first floor area, I'm looking particularly at the first floor, 27 metres squared, and then it says the proposed first floor area is 47, so it's quite a lot more, but I can't see that on the plans. Can you elaborate on that? Or I don't know if there's a typo. Thank you.
I'm not sure is the honest answer. I'd have to check the areas. I don't think they're significantly bigger, so it sounds to me like there was an error in the figures that we put down.
Thank you. And if I can just have one other a quick point. I just wanted to ask about the green roof, which sounds great, but firstly, what will be the access to that? Will it need maintenance? How will that be done? And can we be reassured that it won't become a sort of a nice sitting area, which if people sitting out on it would overlook neighbouring gardens a bit too much? Thank you.
So we haven't specified the type of green roof at this point, but it would be a low maintenance, probably tray-based system, so that it would be, generally speaking, would look after itself for a long time. And then because it's only on the first floor roof, we could access would be very easy from the side of the flat roof if any maintenance was needed. There's not an access door out onto that space, so the only way you could get out there would be to climb through a window, which I don't imagine anyone would want to do. And certainly from a safety point of view, we wouldn't be proposing that.
We've got Councillor Kimbley. Thank you.
Thank you.
I mean, clearly sustainability is a key principle behind this development, and I'm a very big fan of long-term planning and sort of thinking ahead. I mean, particularly with a proposal like this. I wanted to ask, with that in mind, what would you anticipate the lifespan of this overall construction might be? How would it compare with a more typical new build house? And looking at the battery storage facility in particular, what would you expect the lifespan of that to be? What would be the logistics of replacing the batteries when they reach end of life? Thank you.
Thank you. So in terms of the lifespan of the building, we'd be looking at a timber frame, and timber frame can last as long as any other construction. So as we know, there are lots of historic examples of that. Lifespan will depend on a number of specification items that we'll make in the following the planning, and that will be dependent. But we will be looking at installing systems that will have good long lifespans, to make sure that the building lasts as long as we can make it, because sustainability is not just about its immediate environmental impact, but it's long term. So, and certainly from a client point of view, I want the house to last a long time without having to do a lot of maintenance to it. In terms of the battery storage, this will again be a specification thing, and we'll have to look into which battery systems we're going to be installing, and the lifespan of that will be related directly to that, as will replacement, recycling, and those sort of things. So a little bit tricky to answer that at this point.
I've got Councillor Stephen. Thank you.
Thank you. Yes, I also welcome this passive house as well. I think it's very welcome to see it. I can see there's a lot of technology gone into this, with heat pumps and batteries and solar panels and mechanical heat recovery and so on. So I apologise for my two very boring and lame questions, really. They're not at all sexy. So the first one is about bins on bin day. So you've got a gate on the front of the property. So on bin day, where will the bins be, and will they be put outside, and will they cause an obstruction to the neighbouring property?
I believe the current situation is that the neighbouring property, which is where our clients currently live, so they're used to bin day and how they use that, but the bins are placed outside the gates, and there's an area on the end of the road which is doesn't impede anyone else, so there's enough space for the bins to be put out on bin day.
Right, thank you. And my second question, we've got, I guess, Velux type windows in the top elevation, the south-facing roof, and I'm not quite sure from the officer's report whether they were obscure or not, and I think maybe they weren't because of the distance. So just really a question about the layout of the rooms at the top there. I presume they will be sort of bedrooms rather than anything else. So people will generally only be there when they're going to bed, generally. It's not like a living room where people can be sitting there looking out the whole time. If you could just clarify on that, please. Thank you.
Yes, certainly. Yeah, both of the rooms on the top floor are bedrooms. We have introduced those roof lights in order to gain as much south-facing glazing as we can to capture that solar gain. But living rooms, and they also have windows to the east and west, so that their primary aspect will be to the sides rather than out to the rear. But also we've designed it so that the level of the roof lights is quite high in sections, so that you can't stand there and look down on the neighbouring gardens ultimately.
So you wouldn't be able to sit there and look out?
No, you wouldn't.
You'd have to be standing up
exactly.
to look through the window.
Yeah.
Great, thank you.
Proposed condition 8. Chair, if I may, proposed condition 8, I think, covers this, does it not?
I mean, at the moment, condition 8 says that all windows, including roof lights on the south elevation, shall be upon first and glazed with obscure glass to obscuring of no less than Pilkington level 4 or equivalent. Is that correct, then, from what you're saying?
So as the application drawings show that the first floor window is obscure glazed, but we haven't shown the roof lights as obscure glazed, but we'd be happy to discuss that because it's not about view, this is about getting solar gain. So if that's a requirement, I'm sure our clients would be willing to make that amendment.
Okay, so I've got a couple of questions, if that's okay. Thank you for coming. The officer mentioned secure by design. I don't know, because I can't see anything about it in the conditions. Have you actually done anything about getting secure by design?
Not at this point, no. We've designed it with security in mind, as we always do. So we'd be happy to explore that more, and if you know, whatever that entails from a certification point of view, if we need to go down that route.
Okay, thank you. And then we've got also one of the conditions we've got, which is the construction hours. At the moment, it's from 7:30 to 6 p.m. Monday to Friday. I'm just wondering whether, when you're on site, whether that is actually what you really need. Probably you need it for you know, being efficient on site, but when you're next to residents' houses, 7:30 to me sometimes can feel a bit early for some residents, and I'm wondering whether you would consider a later start at all.
Again, at this stage, a little difficult to answer, as it would be dependent on timescales and who was building it, the contractor. But we'd be certainly, you know, we want this to be a positive project, and we certainly don't want to make the neighbouring properties have a hard time while this is being built. So if there's anything we can do to help that, then I would be certainly open to those discussions.
Okay, thank you. And yeah, otherwise, great to see a passive house application. Thank you very much. And you know, the foresight and ambition of the residents as well in going down this route. I know it's probably going to cost them a bit more as well, but will be worth it in the end, if this does get approval, of course. And of course, passive house is brilliant for lower heating. So I presume you're going for an extremely good air tightness. And do you have any idea of how much their heating bill will be once this building's done? Thank you.
Not at this stage. We, through the passive house certification process, would be looking at a specific performance criteria, and it comes down to a kilowatt hour usage per square metre per year, which is 15. Which is typically somewhere between 5 and 10 times better than a typical new build house to build current building reg standards. With the increased air tightness and also the more stringent rules about constructing to the design proposals and the checking throughout the construction process, it means that when you say you're going to build it to that, you actually have to, which is you know, a really good thing in our opinion in passive house. So this will be a very low energy house, and would typically, research would show that it's about, you would pay about 10% of your current in a normal house. It would be about 10% of the normal electricity, or sorry, heating energy requirement.
Great, thank you. Do you have any other questions for Tom at all? No, we're all happy? Okay, if you'd like to take a step back, thank you very much. And now if we've got any... You've got 1 point? Oh yeah, great, please do.
Through you, Chair, just to clarify, in terms of the question that was asked in terms of the second floor square areas, whilst the other questions we're doing, I took the opportunity to measure those. So I think as that there was probably a mistake in terms of that figure, and that is correct. So the first floor figure as approved was approximately 47 metres squared, and as proposed is about 43 metres squared. So they're pretty much exactly the same in terms of floor area, but obviously with the increased wall space, it does reduce the amount of internal floor area.
Okay, has anyone got any questions for the officer, please, or officers? Councillor Amos, go for it.
Thank you, Chair. On that basis, I certainly will go for it. First of all, a technical question before I come on to the practical questions. The technical question is, I'm slightly confused because the planning application as the original one was in July 2021. We're now nearly 4 years on, but it's want to vary a condition, condition 2. How can you vary a condition on something that hasn't been built after nearly 4 years on? So is this not a new application rather than varying the condition of a previous one?
Thank you for the question. Just to clarify, the permission from July 2021 has been implemented, and therefore the permission's still intact and can be varied. If they hadn't implemented the permission, then it would have expired after the 3 years, but because it's been implemented, they are able to vary condition 2.
Thank you. Could the officer just clarify what's been implemented?
The demolition of the garage and I think some other minor works.
Did they need planning permission to demolish a garage on their own property?
I'm quite happy to pick that up. In terms of what the planning permission was given was demolition of the existing garage and construction of the new property. As sure you're aware, Councillor Amos, Section 55 allows that demolition of a garage is development. So development has taken place. It was something that was included within the planning permission, and therefore it has been commenced, even though it might be minor works. They have secured their planning permission and it is there for extant. They have served the necessary commencement notice upon us, and officers have confirmed that on file that the development has commenced.
Thank you. Yes, I wasn't born yesterday. I think this is a little bit of, shall we say, being economical or fanciful with the regulations. But if you say it's still within, then I accept that. But seems to a layperson that, well, leave that to one side. On to the practical questions, Chair. When the application first came to committee, you're too young, and I don't think you're on the committee to remember. But when it did come to committee, there were issues. A resident did come along. I think there were more than one objectors who did come to the committee. I think they've given up today. But there was an issue of overlooking, and that still seems to be the case. I know the report says there isn't, but there clearly is overlooking of those 6 properties. And one of the objectors, it's very sad actually, because an elderly gentleman enjoyed his garden for many, many years, sitting in the garden, and he said this that was proposed to be built would ruin his outlook and would ruin his leisure time. It's very sad. But there we are. So there is overlooking, and I'm surprised that hasn't been given more prominence in the discussion so far. Obviously, there will be an assumption that, well, because this site has planning permission for a property, therefore this should go ahead on that basis. But equally, my training says you have to look at each development on its own merits. So they can't just assume because they've got planning permission for something, they can come back and ask for something completely different, and then that's okay. So I think that's the point that needs to be made. On the question of overbearing, overlooking, well, I've already mentioned that. But it's true, Chair, because if you look at Foley Road, it is largely Victorian terraces. So it's a lovely road, pretty road, relatively low, but beautiful brickwork, beautiful stonework, beautiful windows. And so what perhaps I need to suggest, Chair, in your capacity as Chair, that at the next meeting, you organise a site visit to Specsavers. And I say that because in paragraph 7.13, it says, this property will not cause any harm to the character or distinctiveness of the surrounding area. And then it goes on to paragraph 7.25, and it actually says the proposal would preserve the character and appearance of the site. So I think somebody needs to get Specsavers involved, because clearly looking at what's being proposed and what's already there in Foley Road, clearly are completely incompatible. So I think it's frankly absurd to say we'll preserve what's there. The next question, Chair, is the principle of using a garden for a house. I think we need to bear in mind that Worcester is a city which has very little green space. The boundaries are very tightly drawn. And I always balk at anybody wanting to use the garden to build a house, because the garden, once it's gone, it's gone. And I'm surprised there isn't more concern around the table that we need to preserve green spaces. The next question, Chair, is sustainable. Now, I know for some people, if you bung in the word sustainable on this committee, everybody votes for it because it's got this word sustainable attached. Well, my understanding is sustainable on this committee normally means you're within walking distance, 400 yards of walking distance of a bus stop. But that doesn't apply in this case, I accept. What's sustainable about this? And I was fascinated when the officer said in her presentation, she said, it's about improving the energy performance of the site. Well, what's that about? How can you improve the energy performance of the site when there's nothing there now? How does it improve the energy performance of the site? There's nothing there, not even a garage now. Apparently that's been knocked down, that's gone. So, you know, it's no good bunging in this word sustainable that nobody can define and then says, well, we'll vote for it because it's sustainable. Now, my final point, Chair, is, and nobody's mentioned them, and again, I think it's a pity because it's unbalanced. It's paragraph 6.2, where it says neighbours and other third-party comments. 4 objections. Nobody's mentioned these objections, and so I will, because I think we need a level playing field. What have the residents said? The residents talk about the windows and opaque glass, and that's important because there will be overlooking. Then it goes on to say, not in keeping with the Victorian architecture of the rest of the street. I've mentioned that. Again, privacy, overlooking. Again, the Victorian nature of the local area. And then somebody says that the building is now being proposed entirely different to the local area. And again, in terms of being overlooked. So they are important questions, Chair, that we need an answer to. And the very final question is, I would like some details of the construction programme, because the area just outside this property it's a dead end. It is very, very tight indeed, especially when there's parking on the other side of the road. You'll be very lucky, unless you're an extraordinary driver, to do even a 3-point turn. So I'd like to know, what this is going to be blocked. You know, you've got cars across the road, cars right up to where this house is. So I don't know what these lorries coming in with deliveries and taking stuff away and so on. I'm not quite sure how it's going to work. I would be interested to know. It's a very tight site, and I don't know how you're going to get heavy lorries in and out, because once you're in there, as I say, you have a serious problem of turning round to exit. So I can foresee chaos there, mud on the road, drains blocked, and all the rest of it while this is going on. Because sustainable and brilliant though it may be, personally I think it's hideously ugly, but that's my view. There will be problems that need to be addressed before it starts, because I've no doubt people are going to vote for it this afternoon because it's sustainable.
Through you, Chair. Thank you, Councillor Amos, for your questions. In respect of overlooking, I think if I refer you to page 8, paragraph 7.12, it does show the side elevation, and as you can see, there is one first floor window which is to be side facing towards the properties on Vernon Road, and that is to be obscure glazed. And given the width of it and the way that it will be glazed, we are satisfied that there is no overlooking in respect of that, as would be of any side facing obscure glazed window. And as you saw within the questions to the agent, it has been clarified that there is a condition that requires the roof lights also to be obscure glazed to ensure that there is no overlooking of those properties. In terms of design, the officer set it out within the report and within the presentation. It is a subjective view, and it is something that has to be taken on balance, looking at various different factors. And we've had this conversation in terms of design before, in terms of it may be acceptable to one person, it may be not to others. But from an officer's point of view, what we do is provide the evidential way in which we've arrived at that decision and set that out within the report. In terms of the actual building itself, in terms of building on gardens, it already is an extant permission. Planning permission has already been given for this. This is just a variation of that previous permission. So, as the officer quite rightly said within her report, we're not looking at the principle today, we're looking at the changes in terms of the design. I think the officer was right in terms of where she mentioned that it was sustainable in terms of the site, and it did increase sustainability to the site, because we're looking at the comparison between what was previously approved and what is now, and the level in terms of saving energy, in terms of thermal efficiencies, and all of those things that go to wider sustainable benefits. That's what this proposal puts forward. And then in terms of construction, again, I'd remind members that it is an extant permission. It's something that can be built if they wish to in terms of the previous one, and the construction elements would be the same. But you'll notice quite a long condition in condition 7, which sets out a construction environmental management plan, and members will be aware of that, but probably not the amount of bullet points that this shows. There is a lot of detail there, because officers feel that it needs a lot of detail to be able to explain how that is, and you are absolutely right, Councillor Amos, that this is slightly constrained in terms of where the site is. The benefit of it is that the applicants own the next door property and have the ability to be able to look at opportunities in which they have to be able to facilitate the build in as quick and as short possible time. And you will have heard what the agent said in terms of the construction methods and how that certain things can be constructed off-site to be able to reduce the amount of time and also reduce the amount of works and materials that need to be stored on site. I believe that was all of your 5 questions.
Yes, I've got Councillor Kinsley.
Thank you. Yes, I just wanted to clarify, which I think I have understood correctly from officers, that if we did refuse this, it would revert to the previous building, that building will be going up, and this would be instead of that previous building. That's correct, is it? Thank you. Yeah,
Just to clarify, you are correct, but just to sort of add to that, what this will grant a brand new planning permission, but they have the opportunity to build either or, because both planning permissions will exist until they commence the one or the other. Sorry, continue the works, not commence, because they've already started commencing. But as soon as they start and continue that, this say planning permission was given on the previous one, they wouldn't be able to implement both. It's either one or the other.
Okay, I've got Councillor Udall, please.
Thank you, Chair. Is it possible to get one of the slides back up on the screen, please? I'm looking for the sign where it compares the current one which got consent and comparing that to this design.
The site plan.
It had the 3 buildings, the one which has got planning permission, the current building, and
Elevations.
Yeah. That's a photograph which isn't in our packs. That's the one, I think. No, it's not it. No. Yeah, that one, yeah. I'm a bit of a horns of dilemma here, Chair, because I actually do find the design of the new building attractive. I do like what it says and what goes with it, but there again, I don't have to live my life looking at it every morning. It is a considerable change in what's being proposed now to what's actually previously been given planning consent for, and that does concern me, and I think that is one of the major objections of local residents, is the visual amenity of the site. And that does concern me, bearing in mind that the majority of Foley, well, in fact all of Foley Road, is of a particular type of housing, which the previous application would have not necessarily been in compliance with, but similar to. This will stick out like a bit of a sore thumb in an area where there is locally listed buildings, and that has got a concern to me. I do wonder about whether there is anything we can do about the grey brick, because I think that makes the house look a little bit problematic. I do wonder whether there is anything which we can do about the delivery of goods vehicles to this site. Bearing in mind the next door neighbour is a school and the area is heavily populated during school times with parents dropping off and picking up children. And I do wonder whether the deliveries could be restricted to within school times. But I'm not convinced from what I'm seeing, even though I personally like the design, is in keeping with the local expectations. And I do wonder how we can actually justify the changes by saying that it's in keeping with the local character, because quite frankly it isn't.
Through you, Chair, if I can just come back, because I think that was a question comment.
I know, there was a merger of two.
So in terms of while the picture's up, I think it's quite useful in terms of the impact in terms of the properties on Vernon Road. And you can see that the approved one to the left had quite a large gable end to that property. You'll also notice from the site plan that the proposed now is moved further away from the properties in Vernon Road and adopts a more angled roof to that. So in terms of the massing and the bulk upon the boundary, from an officer's point of view, actually it's less in terms of that overall outlook. And because of the way that the pitch of the roof, it will lessen any impact on property in Vernon Road. If you just turn to page 2 of your reports, it's quite useful that the site plan is proposed in paragraph 2.2, and it does show how that 97 and the proposed property will be set back away from the range of terrace properties. So when you're looking down Foley Road, yes, you'll be able to see the roofscape, but you won't actually see the property at the front of the property in the same context as you're viewing the terrace properties. So from an officer's point of view, that's how we've assessed it, that we looked in terms of how that assessment has taken place. Obviously, the existing property at 97 is a more modern property. It doesn't take those architectural characteristics because it is set back away from the existing street scene. So from an officer's point of view, that's, I think, in terms of providing justification of how that's been arrived at, that's where we get. But obviously, it's for members to consider all the aspects and arrive at the decision themselves.
Can I just gain clarification about the two suggested changes which I've made? One about the colour of the grey brick, which I think does look a little bit strange on that design, and two about the vehicles coming for operational deliveries, rather than construction itself, only coming during school hours. I repeat what I said. I like the design. Personally, I think it's very nice and very attractive. I'm not sure it's in keeping with the area, but as you say, that is an issue of particular personal taste rather than anything else. But I am concerned about the visual amenity.
Through you, Chair. So in condition 7, I'm going to go backwards because it's easier to do from indents rather than counting from the top. So if we go to the third one from the bottom, the hours that delivery vehicles will be permitted to arrive and depart, if members wish to add in brackets to that to help the applicant that should be outside school hours, that would be part of the construction management plan. And in terms of the brickwork, there is a condition in terms of condition 5 in terms of facing, roofing and surfacing materials. So that will be dealt with, but it's entirely up to members whether they wish to give an indication as part of that condition that they wish to say that the current brickwork is not acceptable. But obviously that's your view, Councillor Udall. I don't know how the rest of the committee are viewing in terms of the rest of the brickwork.
Yeah.
I did ask the question to the applicant regarding the brick, and it's just purely for cosmetic purposes. Otherwise, I wouldn't have made the suggestion, because I do think that will have an impact on local residents.
Yeah, Councillor Udall, I'm very much of the opinion that for brickwork, samples are what are important. You can show a brick on a drawing, which when it turns up physically is rubbish.
and also it's the mortar as well, the mortar colour and how it's done. So I'm wondering whether we just make sure that the materials samples are done properly, but maybe you get a sample panel if you're that worried about it, so that we can just see the different bricks and the mortar that you're using together. Would that be like a 1 metre square panel or something? Because I think then the officers will have the confidence to know that they're going to look good. Because there's grey brick and there's grey brick and there's grey brick, but you know I think you've got to think that these are professional architects who have done a very long degree to have something, you know, to know what they're doing. And actually you've got to let the client have a bit of choice over how they're spending the money, don't you, as well, you know, and their
Chair, I
taste.
totally agree
So
with what you're
I think it's
sorry.
complete balance, and I think a sample panel is probably the way forward.
I totally agree in essence with what you're saying, but beauty is in the eye of the beholder. And I do have a bit of concern about the grey brick and the separation between grey and red. And I would personally prefer, and residents have indicated to me that they would personally prefer just a complete red brick building. And I believe that would be in keeping with local expectations and in keeping with the local visual amenity.
Councillor Udall, do you think that is the main problem from local residents?
No, that's one of them.
Yeah, I just really think that when you're looking at a building like that, if you're using 2 different brick colours, it's not really an issue. I would say that you're looking at a reduction. You're reducing building mass, and actually it's a very simple design. If you don't have a colour differentiation, you know, you might be actually losing something. But, you know, there are different opinions. This is the problem. When it comes to design, we're all going from different places, aren't we? Yeah. I've got Councillor Kimberley next, please.
Thank you very much, Chair. I mean, I've been listening to the concerns being raised by my esteemed colleagues. I think that a counter view must be offered, actually. I think there is one first floor window overlooking the other gardens, and it is opaque as I understand it. I am not an especially tall gentleman. I'm not going to stand up and prove that, but I am not an especially tall gentleman. I find it difficult to imagine if there are three ground floor windows, that those will effectively be overlooking the garden through what appears to be quite a high fence from the pictures that I've seen. I also think that it is reasonable to imagine that if this was a proposal to tear down one of the terraced houses on Vernon Park Road and replace it with this building, we'd all be gathering around to say, no, 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 this is not a good idea. Again, I know that we don't do speculation, but I am just going to take the license to speculate. We're not talking about the construction of a new Victorian house, because we don't generally build new Victorian houses, and there's a few practical reasons why we don't do that. One of them is that sustainability is a practical concern. It is not just a left-wing buzzword. It is actually something that matters. If you are trying to run or heat a property and it's something, you know, built in the Victorian or the Georgian period, anybody who's got the fortune of living in such a property, while they may have a wonderful view from the street side, it is a difficult thing to run. It is costly. The pipework constantly needs cleaning and maintenance. There's so many practical problems with it. This will be a development that requires a minimum amount of maintenance and is actually exceedingly practical, providing housing stock into the longer term. I think that there is absolutely an argument for maintaining the heritage character of the city, but we do that through maintaining our heritage assets. I don't see any proposals. I mean, if we're going to be going all the way back into history and saying that everything we build must be consistent with things that were built before, then the cathedral's an absolute eyesore. That's Norman, and it used to be Anglo-Saxon. Tear that down and replace it with an Anglo-Saxon building. You know, we have to be reasonable that we are building within the constraints of the era that we live in. So I think I'm quite happy with the proposals as I'm seeing them. May I also just comment, I'm open-minded about the grey brick frontage on that building. I don't see a problem with that. I think the one concern that would bug me, that I've been listening to through the discussion, was purely down to vehicle access, and it sounds like the condition that is being suggested to limit the time that vehicles will be accessing the property during construction would be a very sensible choice. But I think those are all the comments that I would want to make. I'd be quite happy to support this proposal. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Kimberley. You have strayed into the debate rather than a question, but that's absolutely fine. Uh, one thing I'd like to make you aware of is that there is a pair of Victorian terrace houses in Manchester which are passive house. It was an extensive conversion and they're very successful, and I do believe they sometimes have an open house, so you can go and see them. So it is possible, but I think it did cost quite a bit of money. I've got, where are my? Councillor Cross next, yes. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. Two questions for clarity, please. So the fence height, is that a standard 6 foot or 1.8 metre high fence? And the distance to the nearest bus stop, I believe, is a 1/10 of a mile or 3 minutes walk. Is that correct, please? On Malvern Road, Winchester Avenue.
Through you, Chair, yes, the fence height is standard fence height, and I couldn't tell you where the bus stop was. I haven't got that information to hand.
So we heard a comment earlier about sustainability and distance from bus stop. That's what made me wanted to just double check that point. But bus stops all the way along Malvern Road. Yeah, that's my impression as well. And as long as they're serviced, great. Thank you. No problem.
Okay, so lots of bus stops, but maybe not so many buses. But, you know, we might get that sorted. I've got Councillor Agar, please.
Thank you, Chair. I'm not clear whether to phrase this as a question or part of the debate, but it can go either way. And I want to really sort out 6.4, our landscape officer's comments. And our landscape officer has asked us to either retain an existing tree or to ensure 2 more trees are put on site. Can we frame a condition to that effect, please? .4.
Through you, Chair, we haven't proposed a landscaping condition because there wasn't one on the previous approval, but if that was something that members wish to include, that would certainly be an appropriate condition, and I think the agent indicated that they would be happy to do that. So if, as part of the debate, when we get to that position and members want to make a decision, that could be an appropriate condition added to it.
Okay, do I have any further questions for the officer? Or shall we? We seem to have moved into a debate, so shall we carry on? Councillor Amos?
Could I just ask you to put on the screen the picture, which is a 7.12, the side elevation of the property which would be visible from neighbouring gardens to the south, which obviously the one's in Vernon Park Road. Yes, the one on the right. Now, Councillor Udall was right. I mean, he occasionally is, when he said that it's in the eye of the beholder. But could I just confirm that the case officer and Mr. Round think that the building on the right, which will be the bit overlooking the residents in Vernon Park Road who have objected, that is beautiful or attractive or not unattractive? Because to me it looks like a bit of Lego that's gone wrong. You've got a grey-brown at the bottom, you've got red brick in the middle, and you've got grey or black, whatever it is, at the top. Some of those, and perhaps Mr. Round could confirm, which of those on the top are obscure glazed? Because I assume all those rectangles are windows. Am I correct, or are they panels? They're panels, right? Okay, that's great. So the white ones are the opaque glass, and they're all opaque. Right. That being the case, then perhaps I could just ask the question, Chair, of the case officer and Mr. Round, whether they honestly think, hand on heart, that is beautiful, attractive, or not, or acceptable to the residents who will be sitting in their gardens in Vernon Park Road.
Perhaps if I could take that one initially. Thank you for the question. I've come to the conclusion that this design is acceptable when looking from the properties from Vernon Park Road, both from the properties and the gardens. I think, if I'm honest, that elevation doesn't really do it justice to exactly what you would see on site because of the sloped element of the roof. And the material of the roof would be grey slate. There would be 3 obscure glazed roof lights as per condition 8, and the other 9 rectangles are PV panels, solar panels. Looking at the first floor, you've got red brick with an obscure glazed window, and then looking at the ground floor, you can't see over that fence, and there are obviously trees along the backs of gardens and vegetation which also obscure that view. And you've also got to note that it is 22 metres between the closest rear return and that property. So I think taking all of those things into account, I think the design is actually very good in architectural terms.
Can we get the 3D view up instead of that? Is that right? Because I think that helps show the slope a bit more. Let's remind members of the slope. Yeah. So it is, well, you made the point about massing earlier, didn't you? And the change of that elevation with the slope of the roof. That's definitely, I think, impacting the massing from the view of the neighbours. I'm heartened to hear that they're using slate. Slate's really expensive. So, you know, but it's obviously an excellent material choice and looks really good with red brick. So, you know, quite happy with that myself.
And Mr. Round is of that view as well, Chair.
I don't know.
Through you, Chair. When looking at the two, I believe that the design components work together and it provides an acceptable approach under the policy. That's the way we work, isn't it? We work through the policy, we look at what the design guide tells us to go through, and there are some components in here which I think are good design, and actually in the comparison of those two side elevations, I believe that the proposed one is a better situation in design terms, both in terms of the impact on the Vernon Road properties, because it removes the massing, it moves the property further away, and actually provides them with a better outlook. So from a design point of view, I do believe that it's a better solution.
Okay, it's a site visit to Specsavers then, Chair.
Yeah, I suppose one thing I want to mention really is that the thing about Passive House is that it's really, I think, form following function particularly. You know, it has to work, the windows have to work, you have to let enough solar gain in. I hope that there's enough windows on the east and west elevations to do that. But it really is about the massing is really important in Passive House as well. So, yeah. Have we got any other comments, please? Councillor Barnes.
Something's going to get built on this site, and I think this version is far superior to the original that we decided. It's interesting design, it's modern, against modern school buildings. People in Vernon Park Road will look beyond that building to the school building still. So it is in context of more modern architecture. Also, there are trees at the end of their garden, so they won't see the ground floor grey or whatever, and it ends up brick. I don't mind the grey brick. I think, in some respects, it reflects the grey slate on the porch of the building next door. So that doesn't worry me too much. I worry about the size of vehicles during the building process, and maybe, I don't know, especially if things are being built off-site and transported in, now how that works and what size vehicles would be needed for that, I'm not quite sure. And obviously, school times, just the opening of school and closing of school, that should be avoided. But apart from that, I don't see any problems at all, and I think this is significant improvement on what was agreed in 2021. So from that point of view, I would want to support this, but I would be worried about the hours and the size of the vehicles, I think.
Councillor Barnes, do you know what the kind of school hours are for around there?
Well, they're standard school hours.
No, I mean, but would you be looking at like a half an hour thing, or an hour in the morning, an hour in the afternoon, something like that?
I would have thought half an hour. No, there will be parents dropping off, especially the younger students, but many students walk in on their own volition and don't even know if the gate is open anymore at that end. So students will not be going through that gate into school. So there is less likelihood. There is a footpath that goes through, but there isn't, the gate into the school is not open at that point. So I don't think that it's a major issue, but I think certainly because there's a footpath cutting through from, which road is it? Bromwich Road, thank you. There is an issue just before school and just after school, but that's, I think, quite a limited time and other routes are available. So I just worry about the size of the vehicle, actually, especially if there are large prefabricated pieces coming through quite small roads. But that would be my only concern.
Can I just briefly clarify? Councillor Bond is absolutely right in what she's saying. My only consideration and concern would be that because there is no off-street parking facilities on either Malvern or Bromwich Road for school pupils, a lot of people who come to the school by car from a distance use this road for dropping off because it is a safe place for drop off because they can't do it on the main road. Having said that, everything else which Councillor Barnes has said is correct.
Okay, thank you very much. Councillor Cross?
Thank you. Yes, I would chime with my colleagues' comments that comparing the two proposals, this one is has a lot going for it. I would also suggest conditions in terms of timing, avoiding the school drop-off and pick-up hours, that those may actually be intervals or periods during the permitted construction phase where one's just saying no vehicles during that particular point, because we don't want to have children and delivery vehicles mixing. There's obviously going to have to be a lot of work with neighbours. I'm presuming that the truck coming in would have to reverse that last part of Foley Road to get to site, to get the materials off the back of the site, unless they've got a crane that'll happily take it all the way over Fords, but at some point they'd still have to reverse out. So yeah, basically just the standard sort of materials and vehicle handling considerations on site, and I'd be happy to support moving this towards, or happy to move towards a debate on, towards a vote on this, please.
Yeah, thank you, Councillor Cross. Yeah, we've got, I think, you know, the officers talked about the number 7 about the construction environmental management plan, because they recognise the issue here. It's, I mean, this is a very extensive list, isn't it? So I think that's really important, and yeah, and I think I agree. The idea of restricting it in the morning and the afternoon is probably a safe bet. Have I got any other comments? I can't remember. Was it Councillor Agar? Yes.
Thank you. I think you were having a Bauhaus moment a short while ago, Chair. Form follows function. I think you were. And if we're going to talk about that, I think this design actually is quite exciting in some ways, because we talked about you know, the prefabrication of certain elements of this building, and we know how much that reduces the carbon footprint. It does it enormously, because traditional construction methods are very carbon intensive. So it's great to see that, and as long as we resolve those 3 issues, I'd be very happy to move forward with it, along with Councillor Cross or anyone else.
So we've got, at the moment, we've got a proposal from Councillor Cross, and you're willing to second it. Should we go through if there are any amended conditions, please? Yeah.
I just wanted to ask, apologies, Chair, if you wanted to add the secure by design condition, because I believe I mentioned it in the report, but it's not actually included in the conditions.
So in terms of the conditions then, members, in terms of what, as part of the debate, has been mentioned, condition 5 will be updated to include a 1 metre square panel on site. Condition 7, where it talks about the hours of delivery vehicles, there will be an indication of outside school hours for a submission to be considered. Condition 12 will be details of landscaping, which will be for the provision of 2 trees and include the details of the green roof that the agent mentioned. And condition 13 will be secure by design.
Well, that's the panel, Councillor Udall. I think that's the best we can do, a sample panel. And I think that's actually better because it's got the mortar in it as well, which when you've got like grey mortar and a red brick, honestly, it's, you know. Right. Okay, so that's quite a few changes, isn't it? I mean, the only thing I would say is the landscaping, 2 trees and green roofs. With that, will we include a length of time that they've got to be maintained? 5 years. Okay, fine. Yeah, are we all happy with condition 11 with the construction work hours? Just want to check that because at the moment we've got that 7:30 till 6 p.m. Monday to Friday, 8 till 1 on Saturdays, not at any time on Sundays, bank or public holidays. Sorry? Yeah. Yeah.
Well, the school hours is only about the delivery, isn't it? Not if you can actually work.
Yeah, I mean, is there a way of, I mean, they could be on site at 7:30, we just don't want them being noisy, I don't know. How do we address that?
Through you, Chair, it's when you're starting to think beyond the hours in terms of noise, that's sort of going beyond what the planning authority has control over. Obviously, Worcester Regulatory Services are the jurisdictions in terms of noise, but obviously there are events, once the main shell is done and you're doing electrical fit out, I don't think that would cause any issues at 7:30. So I think by restricting the deliveries, what members have done exactly what they wish to do in terms of preventing any conflict between school traffic. I think, personally, I think leaving it as it is, but it's entirely up to members to do as they wish. But I don't think in terms of limiting it for the whole duration of the construction phase would be appropriate.
Councillor Amos?
Chair, I assume everybody is aware that the only access to this site is down Foley Road or Vernon Park Road. Foley Road has parking on both sides, so you've only, in effect, you've got one route, one lane down. Vernon Park Road is even worse. You've got parking both sides, and again, so you've only got room for one vehicle. I am concerned, and I think this needs to be taken into account. Wide lorries are going to get stuck down there. And if they do, they're not going to be able to reverse, and there'll be complete blockages. As long as members are aware of this, it doesn't really matter what hours, because we all know you start at 7:30, the drivers get there at 7:30 and leave the engines running until then they will start unloading at 7:30, but the engines are running at 7 o'clock. And I don't see there's going to be any enforcement of it, frankly. Nobody's going to enforce it, so it really doesn't matter. But what I'm concerned about is these lorries getting stuck and blocking both of those roads.
To be helpful, and through you, Chair, the whole point of the construction environmental management plan is how that the applicants will be providing that delivery operation, and as part of that, there are very constrained sites across this country where building takes place, and deliveries take place because they know of those constrained elements. They choose the correct vehicles. So I appreciate that is a concern, but actually we've got a condition that deals with that, and ultimately we're starting to again stray slightly out of the realms of what planning can deal with, but we have got control over that, and that will certainly be looked at as part of the construction environmental management plan.
Okay, therefore we've got a proposal from Councillor Cross and a seconder from Councillor Rhagar, and we've had officers outline the amendments to the conditions and the extra conditions. So I think we should move to the vote. Can I see all hands in favour? Okay, against, please. And abstentions? Thank you. That is therefore carried. Thank you. Yeah, we're just going to wait for Councillor Smith to come back in, and then we'll move to the next item. Okay, welcome back. We're going to move to agenda item 8. This is Bransford Road, and we've got Laura presenting. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. So agenda item 8 relates to a full planning application which seeks to change the use of an existing retail unit, use class E, to extend the accommodation within an existing C4 house of multiple occupation within number 34 Bransford Road, and to provide a new front door to the existing residential flat above the existing shop at the site. The application referred to the committee at the request of Councillor Udall as a result of concerns relating to the loss of retail space, the impact on losing a community asset, and the impact on parking. Following the publication of the agenda, the agent has agreed to provide some landscaping at the site to enhance the street scene. A pre-commencement condition has been agreed to ensure that full details are submitted of a landscaping scheme along with a 5-year maintenance plan. I therefore recommend an additional condition in this regard is added to the officer recommendation. In addition, as the property is an existing 5-bedroom HMO, a further condition is also recommended to ensure that no additional bedrooms are created without the express permission of the local planning authority. Now looking at the site's location, indicated by the red line on the location plan here. The application site comprises number 32 to number 36 Bransford Road in Worcester, situated at the junction of Bransford Road and Graham Road. As the Bransford Road continues to the east, there is a Catholic church and a primary school leading on to the St John's Local Centre. The site is a sustainable location with good connectivity, with nearby access to public transport links, with bus stops on either side of the road outside the front of the property. The application site is located within a primarily residential area. Bransford Road serves as a key local route which is lined with a mix of terraced and semi-detached dwellings. There's also an existing Cantonese restaurant, number 38, adjacent to the existing convenience store within number 36. So 36 Bransford Road, an existing convenience store with a 2-bedroom residential flat above. Number 34, however, an existing HMO, use class C4. There are also 3 flats within number 32 Bransford Road. The existing HMO is a total of 5 bedrooms, and the flat affected by the proposals has 2 bedrooms. The proposals do not seek to add any additional bedrooms to either the HMO or the flat at the site. Now looking at the existing floor plans with 1 HMO bedroom at ground floor, along with a lounge, kitchen and downstairs WC. At first floor level, there are 4 bedrooms within the HMO and a bathroom. Within the existing flat, there are 2 bedrooms at first floor level and a combined lounge and kitchen. Now the proposed floor plans. The existing retail area is proposed to be converted into an extended lounge, kitchen and dining room for the use of the occupants of the HMO. And within the flat, the change relates to the creation of a new entrance hallway, accessed from the front elevation. Now moving on to the existing and proposed elevations. The proposals include the removal of existing shop front and the introduction of doors and windows similar to the existing ones adjacent. There is also a tiled canopy introduces to the frontage. The proposals also include a 3-foot wooden fence similar to the existing fencing, albeit not as high. Whilst it is considered that design is appropriate, it's recognised that the application site is at capacity in terms of development overall, and that the previous planning permission at the site included a condition removing permitted development rights. It's therefore considered that it's reasonable and necessary to carry forward this condition to the new application, as such it's set out in section 9 of the officer's report. Looking at the outside areas, including the amenity space, the parking, refuge storage, vehicular and pedestrian accesses and amenity areas remain as existing, and the proposals result in no further new demand for parking. Now the plot plan just showing the existing arrangement here. Now moving on to a selection of site photos. The application site, the white rendered building on corner of Bransford Road and Graham Road. Now looking at the existing shop front and existing entrance door to the right. Bransford Road connects to the main road within the St John's Centre, as can be seen in the far right of the photo. Now just another perspective looking at both sides of the road with the row of terraced dwellings opposite. Now looking to the left of the shop, the existing Ruby Cantonese restaurant. Now a perspective taken from Graham Road with the site on the right and the terraced dwellings opposite. Now moving around to the side of the site with the parking areas just there on the right. And again a further view just showing the parking area with the two separate vehicular and pedestrian accesses into the site, all of which is proposed to remain unaffected by the proposals. During the course of the application, a number of objections have been received in relation to the loss of the retail shop as a community facility and the impact on the loss of the shop on elderly and disabled local residents. With regards to the acceptability of the principle of development of the proposals, the considerations of SWDP 10 are particularly relevant here. This states that the change of use of a neighbourhood or corner shop will only be permitted if there is an alternative equivalent facility within safe walking distance. In this instance, the footnote to the policy clarifies that 800 metres is considered to be walking distance. As the map on the slide shows, there are 3 equivalent facilities within 800 metres from the site, including the European Mini Market within the St John's Centre, which is approximately 270 metres away, the St John's Local Store, which is approximately 400 metres away, and the Sainsbury's Supermarket, which is approximately 450 metres away. Whilst the community concern with regards to the loss of the community asset and the impact on local economy is noted, as there are equivalent facilities within the safe walking distance of the site, the requirements of Policy 10 are met and there is no conflict with this development. Whilst it's considered that the shop would be missed by the local community, it is also a consideration for members to note that as the shop falls under Use Class E, following the changes to the Use Class Order in 2020, it is possible to change the use of a shop to a C3 dwelling house or any use falling under Use Class E under permitted development without the need to apply for planning permission. Concerns with regards to the over-concentration of HMO properties and the impact on parking and highway safety have also been raised, and as the proposals add no new residential flat rooms or new HMO rooms or uses at the site, the proposals would not further impact on the over-concentration of HMOs in the area. Similarly with parking, as the proposal would see the removal of the shop, which would generally be expected to generate higher vehicle movement and the need for further parking, the proposals themselves are really likely to improve the parking situation within the area. It is also considered that proposals would improve the living conditions within the existing HMO through providing a larger communal area, which is a benefit. Therefore, taking into account all the relevant issues as set out in the Officer report, it is considered that the proposals do comply with the relevant policies set out within the SWDP and the aims and objectives of the National Planning Policy Framework. As such, the recommendation is one of approval from officers, subject to the conditions set out in section 9 of this report and the conditions relating to landscaping and the number of HMO rooms mentioned at the start of my presentation. Thank you, Chair.
Okay, thank you, Laura. Would Harjman like to come forward? Thank you. And are you the applicant? Oh, lovely. Okay, so you'll have 5 minutes to speak, and like before, I'll indicate when you're nearly up, and at 5 minutes you'll need to stop. Okay?
Okay, well, thank you for having me here. I think, to be honest, the planning officer said pretty much what I was going to say. It's pretty much in the report anyway, but I'll just go through a few points of which I just want to clarify. I believe we're here today because County Udall has picked it up and stated there's concerns with a loss of retail space, parking, and a community loss. Okay, so we accept what he says, okay, but what we've been advised, technically, slightly incorrect. It's not actually a loss of retail space. Since 2021, as I think, well, whether the date was stated or not, but I think the planning officer has stated, this unit falls under what is classed as Class E. So it has a consent under permitted development to trade pretty much as anything. So it could open as a vape shop, it could open as a barber's, it could open as pretty much an accountant's office. There's a whole broad of different types of businesses it could open as. I think some of the concerns that have been raised, obviously it's a newsagent, it's been there for many years. We know the people who run there, they're good tenants, but it's got to a point where times have changed. People can't make a living, which is unfortunate, and your local shops, such as newsagents, they don't work. No, it's just an unfortunate situation we're in. Based on the fact when you walk out the shop, there's a huge supermarket across the road. It just makes it very, very difficult. So whichever way you look at it, the newsagents will be going anyway. That's not a forced closure. That is something which they've decided to do after many years of being there and trade seeing a massive decline. Obviously, understandable due to the change of times. So we are left in a position where we've got a unit which can be considered dilapidated, which falls under Class C. And like I said, we could be approached by a whole number of people, barbers, vape shops, what have you. I state these businesses because they are the businesses which you see in the current St. John's vicinity. But ultimately, Class E also benefits from permitted development to convert it into C3 residential, which was implemented in 2021. Now, we had an option when we looked at this unit. We were either going to go down that road and then apply to make it into a flat, or based, obviously, it's under prior approval, so it still needs to be looked at our planning officer, but we were confident enough that we would sit down and we would got a scheme good enough for the planning officer to look at and think, yes, it meets the criteria set under permitted development in order for it to pass. But, surprising and contrary to what some people might think, we're now in a position where we don't want to try and cram as many units in one location as we can. Times have changed. The kind of quality of what we offer to the market, we're existing landlords, we've been in Worcester for many years. What we offer to the market is something which we see as more upmarket. We try to give the tenants what they want. On site at the moment, as we've been, as you all know, there's a 5-bed HMO on there. It's tired. So what we've decided to do, as opposed to just trying to cram another unit in and exercising the permitted development rights, which we could have done, we're not going to do that. What we're going to do is use that space to extend the original HMO, not by room numbers. There is a license there to trade as 5 rooms, and it will stay. It's just to make the rooms bigger, better, en suites, more communal area. And that way, from our point of view, it's good because it brings that property to the standard that we want it to be. It's better from a letting point of view because incoming tenants get a better way of living. In addition to that, we're going to take a section of that space to facilitate a front door for the flat upstairs. As the planning officer stated, there's a flat currently above the shop. At the moment, to get to it, you need to go right round the back. It's not nice. Having this implemented, we could put a front door on there. So again, we're improving what's there. We're not, in terms of parking, it won't change. In actual fact, parking will be bettered in the fact that people won't stop at the front for the shop. In terms of loss of retail space.
Okay, thank you, sorry.
Okay.
Your time's up,
Fine.
thank you.
Okay.
It's all right, yeah. Thank you for your presentation and for coming here today. It's really great that you've come. Open the floor to questions, please. Councillor Barnes.
Thank you. We hardly ever see a situation where an HMO is being improved, so that sounds quite positive. Obviously, you're going to be losing your income from the shop. As you improve all the sizes of the individual units, does that mean that you'll be increasing the rent as you improve the quality?
The answer to that is potentially. What we will do, we will bring it to a market value. At the end of the day, we can charge as a business what we want. It doesn't necessarily mean the incoming person will take it. So we are actually on a level where we are dictated really by a market and the price of the local area. We do see, in all honesty, we do see ourselves on the higher end of that, but we have success because the quality of product we bring to market, people enjoy and like.
Councillor Kinsley.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you for coming today. I just wanted to ask about the existing shop. You say it's been there for a number of years, and I'm sure it is used. Take on board your points about other retail outlets in the area. Am I right in thinking that there's nothing further down the road? That is sort of the last shop as you go out to St John's.
There is. So you have the well. It depends how further out you talk. There is. There's another. If you go in towards out of Worcester, there is 2 more convenience stores towards the outside of Worcester, towards the Dines Green estate. That area.
Not on the Brentford Road.
Okay.
Sorry.
Not on the Brentford Road.
On the sorry.
Not on the Brentford Road.
No, not on the Brentford Road. No, there's not.
Okay.
Sorry.
And thank you.
No.
I just
I was
wanted
getting
to.
confused with the area of St John's.
Thanks. I wondered as well if you could just tell us a little bit about the current tenants. You're saying that you mentioned can't make a living and the tenants choosing to leave. Are you able to tell us a bit more about that circumstance? And
Sorry,
also
could you say that again?
The existing tenants that are leaving the shop, are you able to tell us a bit more about that decision? And
Okay, well, at the end of the day, it's a decision they've made. They've run a course. I think, from where they started 10 years ago to where they are now, times have changed. We've had COVID since then. Times have, it's changed the dynamics of everything. The high street as a whole, taking a shop to one side, if you go down Worcester High Street, everything is changing. There's a lot of empty shops. It's unfortunate. I get that, but it's just the way, times have changed and people are now moving on to, like, for example, it's a newsagent. People now a majority of people will read online, as opposed to having a newspaper delivered to their premises, for an example.
Could you just confirm, though, is the shop currently financially unviable?
Yes.
I've got Councillor Cross, please.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you very much for coming and helping explain the situation to us. Really applaud the whole concept of improving the amenity value and the quality for tenants within HMOs. Having seen where my daughter is currently staying in Nottingham, I would love that to happen there. But yeah, so that's very welcome, and about not just squeezing more units in, so aiming to raise the standard, brilliant. May I ask, how many are all your residential units currently let, and how do you propose to offset the noise or the impact upon the residents of the units during the construction process? Just wondering about how you see that working. Thank you.
Yeah, sure. Okay, so sorry, I think I understood your question, but I'll answer the best I can. In terms of construction, it's very minimal. There's nothing externally to be built. It's all internal work. The work that we do will start, at a reasonable hour. At the end of the day, they're my tenants. The current tenants in that property, we have a legal obligation with them anyway, not to cause noise, not disturb them, which we will absolutely honour. So in terms of construction works, it'd be a reasonable time. It would not start any later than 9 a.m. It may start at 10 a.m. And it would, in terms of the noise and the disturbance, it would be very minimal. But tenants normally will work, people generally, work from 9 till 5, and they're out the building by those times. And they're the times that we would work round. Weekends is absolutely a no.
Thank you.
But another question, I think, to be honest, in terms of the work to convert this, it may seem a lot, but realistically, it's probably about 4 to 6 weeks.
Councillor Stephen?
Yes, it's very good to see this application, and it's good to see the improvement for the tenants. As you say, the standards are going up. People expect more space en suite. They expect to be able to have communal living and to be able to eat together and socialise as well, as rather than just sitting in their own beds in their own individual room. So I welcome that. Now, my question is, obviously, if you're going to try to improve the offer, my question really is about cycling as well, about bike racks and so on. And I recognise that this isn't actually part of this application, but my question is really on a general terms. In terms of the students, do you find that if you have got bike racks you provide, that it does help you to market the property, to be able to get more students in there, or is that something that they're not asking for? Because, you know, I'd obviously like to promote more cycling, particularly the students getting into town to lectures on the other side of this city as well.
If I'm completely honest, all our properties have cycle facilities. So every single room that we offer, whether it be in a HMO or a flat or a house, will have its own cycle facility. We don't see it used very much. One thing we have seen, which is good and very positive, is this Beryl bike system in Worcester. Now, in actual fact, we actually use it as a marketing ploy. So when we have a unit which is close to one of them, or if we don't, we will let every tenant that we have that comes in, we provide them a walking pack. And part of the walking pack now shows them where the Beryl bike system is. And from the feedback I got, I think it's very positive. I think that was a great addition to the city.
So based on that, do you actually have any cycle parking at the moment on this site?
Yes, we do.
You do?
Yes, we do. So, when we were granted permission for the HMO, it was actually, I think originally it's changed. I think it was originally for 6 occupants, went down to 5, but we do have a facility for every person on site to have, we have bike storage for everyone on site.
I've got Councillor Udall now, please.
Yeah, thank you. I have 2 questions, if I may. First of all, a number of the customers of the existing shop, you said the shop is unviable. A number of the customers from the existing shop have been told, allegedly by the owners, the reason it's become unviable is because of a recent rapid increase in rents on the property. Can you comment on that and give us some assurance that is or is not the case?
Okay, I can categorically say in front of everybody here on YouTube, that is not the case. The tenants in the property, in actual fact, are related to one of my business partners. So, in essence, it is family run to a degree. So no, it's not about the rent increase as such, in any way, in actual fact. But now you've mentioned rent increases, it's not uncommon, and it's norm that rents have increased over the last 10 years. Not necessarily commercially, because commercial businesses can't make it work. They're actually staying away from the bigger shops, but definitely on a residential basis.
But there has been a recent...
There has not been a recent increase in rent.
Okay, thank you for that. My second question is regarding the parking restrictions outside the property. At the moment, it's limited waiting, and that's obviously only there because of the shop. There is some concern that that limited waiting will be removed and the yellow lines will be in place in front of the building as a consequence of the shop going. Have you got any concerns about that?
Absolutely not.
Okay.
To be honest, actually, I would actually encourage it. I think that from a living point of view, especially from the frontage, having that constant traffic in front of whether it be people walking or driving, it's not good. So if that was to be the case, I think it would be to be honest, very welcomed. We've tried, actually, if you look at the plans, to try and screen the front in a certain way. I spoke to the planning officer. It was a bit late in the day, but I know we've agreed, I'm quite happy to agree, a landscaping scheme to put the front of the property. The only thing I would say, please remember that we're on Bransford Road. You know, we're quite happy to make the place look great, but from a how can I put this? From a vandal point of view, and having the Cantonese restaurant adjacent to it, it needs to be something in keeping, really. No, we have provided a scheme. It was a bit late in the day, but I will forward it again to the planning officer, and hopefully we can get that over the net as a condition. Yes, that's the word. Condition, yeah. Thanks.
Yeah, that's really great, thank you, because I know when I looked at the drawings, I saw these 4 pots on the front elevation. I was like, what are those?
Yeah.
You know, and actually some clarification is, you know, great. I've got Councillor Kimberley now, please.
Thank you very much. I mean, I've been looking, I've been trying to sort of get my head around the space that this property is sort of set in, and I can see why, you know, I can see from looking at the situation of where this is on the road, it's not necessarily the most, it's, you know, it's close to Bromyard Road and it's close to the centre of St John's. There's obviously going to be competition with other businesses, which makes it tricky, I think, in this current climate, running a corner shop. I did want to ask, you talked a little bit about how you couldn't be sure what form of business would take up occupancy in that space were it to be vacated and not to be developed. Have you been approached by any businesses seeking to take up occupancy in that space at this point?
Not necessarily. I have people approach me to take up. We have various units around Worcester. I've had people approach me, but not specifically for that area. The only thing I will say is to live above, if you look at the unit, to live above or around or the back of a retail unit such as that, it's not the best, you know. If you want to, I think it's good. Well, it can be good from a landlord point of view of having different income streams, you know, as opposed to just trying to have residential on there. But if you're going to live there, I don't think people would necessarily want to live above a convenience store. And that's the feedback we've had from our tenants. You know, in the past, when we've tried to let it, it's always been an off-put. So, hence the reason, to be honest, about the change into residential, just to make it suit the building.
And if I may just follow up on that, so would I be right in understanding that the core reason for why you have gone through this route, rather than through the C3 permitted development route or for refitting it for different commercial use, the reason for that is essentially because you think that it will be more profitable run as a fully residential structure?
No, okay. The reason why we've done it this way, okay, so I don't know if I explained myself clearly, sorry.
I am slow.
Yeah, that's fine, that's fine.
I will understand you eventually.
So, okay, the retail shop, especially where it is, we've had no interest since we marketed it, potentially to let, which is understandable. We had the option, as I've stated, to convert it under permitted development rights into a self-contained dwelling, which would have been a flat. It's obviously based around certain things, as you can understand, minimum room sizes, minimum flat sizes. So we could have had it, it's big enough to contain a single flat. However, to put a flat in there, in essence, doesn't take away the fact the flat upstairs still has to be accessed to the back, and my HMO has been there for many years and is tired. If I'm completely honest, if you look on the market, I think we've got to a stage now, Worcester is pretty much saturated with HMOs. There's a lot out there that's not letting. It's a very competitive market. A lot of landlords that I know are struggling, and the people that are struggling are the ones who have poor HMOs. When I mean poor, the room sizes are small, the quality is bad. People now can pick and choose where they go because there's a lot out there. on our portfolio, we've ensured that all our stuff is of what we see as exceptional quality, apart from where we are here. So what we've decided to do, because of the lack of interest in the shop being let, to use that space, not to just open and create another flat, but to use that space just to enhance what's already there. And hopefully that way, everyone there, it's better that way, because generally it's a better way to live and it's an easier let for us. It may short-term prove a loss of income to us, but long-term we see it as a benefit.
If I may follow up. So if I'm understanding you correctly, it's essentially you're taking the experiment to see if this would work better in terms of the business. I wanted to ask, I hope I'm not going back too far on a previous topic, but I'd just be interested to know how much you've done in terms of exploring turning some of the pavement access to the frontage of the building into a little bit of green space for the tenants. Because looking, again, when I was looking on Google Maps to get a sense of the situation on the street, the house on the other side of the Cantonese restaurant seems to have some front garden space, so clearly some form of green space can work. Is that something you've explored? Is it something you've
Yes, it's on the plans actually.
Amazing.
So if you look at the plans, the shop is actually it's a little bit set back. It's a metre set back from the original boundary fence. So what we've proposed to do is to carry it along and we've agreed to a pre-commencement condition of having some sort of landscape in there, whatever it may be, some bay laurels, something which we need to put there, but we need to understand obviously where it is. If we put something too extravagant, it's just going to be, because of vandalism, it's going to go. But we would want something there anyway, just to bring it, to make it look more vibrant and less concrete.
Thank you very much for indulging me.
I've got Councillor Agar, please.
Yes, thank you. Thank you for coming to explain so much to us. I think it's been important. What I'm concerned about here is that you're saying to us that you want to reconfigure this space and change its use to make the HMO more attractive to existing and future residents. And that's a laudable aim. Can you assure me, therefore, I mean, in previous applications, you've actually wished to squeeze more bedrooms in. And I wondered if you would be prepared to assure me that you will not turn this into another bedroom.
No, okay. Okay, in terms of where we were previously to where we are now has changed. Time has changed that, and the market's determined that. It's no different to, if you'd asked me this 5 years ago, I'd probably have encouraged a retail unit to stay there. I'll be completely honest, from a landlord point of view, it's more viable. It's more profitable to have a commercial tenant there who's paying, on a long-term lease than having a tenant who has the ability to stay there for 6 months or 12 months. But our thought process and our product has changed to where we now know that you have to provide that level of accommodation, especially in Worcester, because there's a lot of it, to get it let. So yes, the answer to your question is no. There will be no more bedrooms on site. Absolutely not. And I don't think the planning officer would allow it anyway. But yeah, the plans that we've put on just seek to enhance what's there. One thing which we have seen actually from COVID since those days is where you used to have a HMO, and I know planning law is different to housing law, So whereas you could get away with having, for example, one bathroom to 4 people sharing it, people won't do that anymore. People want their own ensuite. And I think that's come, just from a society that's been brought up from using hand sanitizer and understanding that this, of where we are. So that's one thing we are doing in all our properties, is making the rooms bigger, more comfortable, and introducing en-suites such as this one.
Councillor Cross, you've got...
Thank you very much. That's really encouraging to hear. Market forces driving up quality as opposed to just down price and down quality. Brilliant. So maybe COVID brought some good things, I don't know, but it's certainly forced a lot of people to rethink their model. Certainly it's very difficult for shops and retail. I understand that's not within your gift. I was very interested in hearing, with your parking, cycle storage, and you've got it in all your properties. Can I just double check that that is in all your properties, but especially here, that it's secure and it's covered and it's accessible or easily accessible?
Yes, it is. And it's, again, with all the applications that we've had, regardless of where it may be, that has been part of the conditions in every application we've had of late, whether it be from a HMO or a flat point of view. I think one of the conditions that planning officers have, especially highways have, is that every room will need a space that's sheltered and secure.
Brilliant, thank you. So especially the secure, accessible
and
covered.
Just one more. In St John's, I will highlight, there is we talk about parking. One thing I do, which is quite shocking, is there is actually no public car, which we're hearing a lot from in St John's. There is no public car park in St John's. There's nowhere to park. Sainsbury's used to have an ability where they used to, their car park at night, they close at 10 o'clock. People who live around the area used to park in the car park. They may have paid a company to do so and then moved it in the morning, but now that's been closed too. So you're seeing, you will be seeing, and we are seeing, a lot of people parking where they shouldn't be, especially where you have, I'm sorry, I know I'm going off the topic here, but I thought I'd take the opportunity to say it, where the existing co-op used to be, and, it's just a free-for-all down there. It's a free-for-all.
Okay. I've got Councillor Amos, please.
Thank you, Chair. I just wasn't going to ask a question until Mr. Minas just made a statement. He said about people wanting en-suites and probably prepared to pay more for an en-suite. Totally get that, totally accept that. But the report tells us the area that's going to be reconfigured is for kitchen and dining room use, not for en-suites.
Correct, because what we will do, we will take the existing kitchen from what I can see from the plans, what I can remember, because we're moving the kitchen over to where it was originally the back to the front, we'll have more space to make the rooms bigger. So if you look at the original plans, and I believe this is correct. I haven't got them in front of me actually, sorry, but you should have them there. The existing plan has the kitchen at the back. The kitchen will be moved to the front in a much bigger area, a much more practical area. Yeah? Yeah, so that's the original shop. Existing, yeah.
Yeah.
So if you look at the existing, what the existing is, the kitchen's at the back, and we're going to move it to the front.
I don't think they could see that.
No, Specsavers.
Yeah. Yes, Chair, the print is very small, but what I'm trying to get my head round is if a reconfiguration is to take place, I can't quite see how you can make the bedrooms into en-suites, which I accept is a perfectly reasonable thing to do, and end up with a larger kitchen area and larger dining room area, if you're going to make them into en-suites. In other words, the extra space that's going to become available can only be used for one purpose. It can't be used for multiple purposes at the same time, anyway.
Sorry, do you want me to answer that? Sorry. Yeah. So if we can move, the plan is obviously, as you can see, to move the kitchen from where it is at the moment to the back. I think I might have got carried away with the en-suite section of it, which is true in a sense. But ultimately, we need, in addition to en-suites, you do need to provide people with more of a communal area. So, where we have this kitchen at the back, which obviously originally, and it still does meet minimum room sizes, to move to the front to have much more of a communal area, enhance the property. If that makes sense, sorry. If not, please tell me. No.
I accept what you say.
And, and again, on your point, if we were to go down the road of having, which we didn't decide to do, but to change a shop into, say, a self-contained flat, if you see whether, it is a busy road, and really having bedrooms, I know you can't change the fact that you've got bedrooms on the top floor, but to introduce bedrooms on the ground floor is something we have control over. Hence why we've tried to put the kitchen facilities to the front. Just enhance the design.
Councillor Udall, if you wanted to say something?
Turn yours off so I can...
Oh, yeah, sorry.
Just press that. No. Okay, thank you for that. Mr Minas, I know you are a very skilled local businessman and you've got lots of things and lots of pies. I'm just curious, and this is just a curiosity at this stage, looking at the footprint of the entire site's boundary, would it not be better for you commercially to demolish everything and rebuild a new purpose-built building, which would actually suit your services much more suitable than continue messing around with the existing fabric of the building? Because a purpose-built would obviously lend itself to development better than what you've currently got.
Well, actually, I'll say two, maybe a few more, but definitely two reasons. Firstly, cost.
Yeah.
Okay, obviously, to demolish what you've got and start again is a huge outlay. And number two is parking. You know, we are still restricted to where we are. Where we are here, we have an obligation. Had we been somewhat close to the St John's area, there is actually no obligation to provide parking for flats, which you know. Which, in actual fact, can seem a bit crazy because there is nowhere to park in St John's. Whereas where we are, we have an obligation to provide at least one space per one tenant on site. So I think, to be honest, I think we have maximised that site. And to introduce anything else on there, it's just we're cramming it in.
I've got Councillor Barnes, please.
I'm now confused because I thought I'd cracked it. Page 20, proposed floor plans don't show any en-suites.
Where are we? Okay, page 20.
Doesn't show any en-suites.
Okay. Right, when you've got an ensuite. So this is proposed floor plan. Do you know what? We've got these plans designed. I can't even read them myself. So the floor,
Can
that
we get a big
bedroom,
screen?
2.
Just
2,
have the officer
3.
clarify, I think. Yeah, got one, Laura.
Lounge. Yes, no, they can't. She is
Yeah,
right.
through
yeah.
you, Chair, just to clarify
Yes.
that there are no en-suites proposed
No.
on the first or the ground floor, I
No,
don't think.
no, there isn't. No, that's correct.
So what we're seeing is better communal space.
Yes.
Which the bedrooms in this building didn't have before.
Yes, and putting the kitchen to the front. Yes, that's correct.
Okay. Councillor Barnes, did you have anything?
Sorry, to answer, can I just finish my answer to that question? Yes, I think, from what I said before, just so you might have got confused, and I might have got confused slightly. From the properties that we have on offer, and we do have quite a number actually, we are introducing en-suites where we can. Looking at this plan, you are correct in actually saying there's no en-suites in the room. I should have read the plan properly myself before I came in. But yes, what we've done, as the chair has said, is what we're looking to is just enhance the area and make it better. If you look at the existing plans where the kitchen was at the back, it's not just the en-suites that can cause an issue. It's communal area as well. People don't want to be, when people are cooking, especially in this day and age, people enjoy cooking as well. You don't want people to be crammed in an area where it's all confined. So yeah, the plans here just kind of utilize it. And I think one thing we're also forgetting is the fact we're not just proposing to enhance the HMO. There is an existing flat above the shop already, and the access point to that flat currently is at the back. You have to go through the car park and around the back of the building to get to, and it's not nice. So we've used what we propose to do is put a front door actually on the main road, which you can see on the plans, as access point to the flat upstairs.
Councillor Barnes?
Thanks for clarifying that. So I had actually grasped originally that it was mostly to do with the space down shared space. And then you sold this wonderful picture of everything having an ensuite. And I thought, wow, that's fantastic. So that sales pitch, ignore.
Well, I wouldn't call it a sales pitch, but that's fine, yeah. No, so it's just, it is what we bring to market, but on this plan, obviously. But to bring, yeah.
Of course, you know, they're perfectly able to put en suites in without planning permission.
Yeah.
You know, at a future date. Well, you could lose a bedroom, couldn't you? Right. Do I have any other questions for the speaker? No? Okay. If you'd like to return to your seat behind.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. That's very useful.
Thanks.
Do we have any, open the floor to questions for officers, please? Councillor Agar.
Thank you. With the change of use to C4, I'm not sure that I can think of a way of preventing that extra facility from becoming a bedroom in the future. Is there a way to do that?
Through you, Chair, it's not in the documents, but I did mention in my presentation that we have recommended an additional condition. It's a 5-bedroom HMO, so that would be to remain as a 5-bedroom HMO, so that no new additional rooms could be created without planning permission.
Thank you, because I mean I can see that permitted development rights have already been removed, but that doesn't apply to the interior.
Anyone else? Councillor Udall?
Yeah, thank you, Chair. I'm quite impressed with what's been suggested so far, but I have got a significant concern which I would like some clarification on. I'm aware this has been used as a shop in the local area for over 70 years. It's very important to the local community as a retail establishment. And I looking at the plan on page 25, which shows the nearest alternative retail outlets which could be served the community. I know there's nothing to the south of this shop until we get to the Co-op store on Canada Way, and there's nothing to the west of this shop until you get to Bransford. So I am very concerned that the community which relies upon this shop to the south, to the north and to the east are going to have significant problems in gaining to an alternative retailer. They'll have to go considerably further. I see what's been said about the other shops which are in St John's. I would personally argue the former Richardson's shop is the only one which is of comparable kind of size and shape and providing a similar kind of service. I am concerned that this is going to be a loss of a community asset, and I seek some assurances from officers about that they've done the calculations, I wouldn't say correctly, but within knowledge of what's in the other direction.
Through you, Chair, I'm happy to pick that up. Apart from referring you back to 7.6 within the report that talks about to the north, there's the Red Mini Mart on Lawn Road. To the east, there's the nicer local on Bromyard Road. And then, although slightly further afield to the south, there is the Bromwich Road convenience store. So there are other stores within that distance. But having said all of that, when we look at the policy requirements, we're into that 800-metre walking distance from the store itself, rather than from a nominal point anywhere else. So we do believe that the existing residents will be served by adequate facilities within walking distance of their properties.
Councillor Amos?
Thank you, Chair. I mean, Mr. Minas, I thought, gave us a very active presentation, so that was helpful, but I'm still not 100% convinced. It's this word reconfiguration. I mean, you've got a lot of extra new space coming, and it is going to enhance the facilities of the existing, for the existing residents, when in fact, if you want to increase the rent and attractiveness of the properties, as Mr. Minas has said, it would be better to put it in en suites If you're reconfiguring, in other words, using the same space in a different way, that would seem to make more sense. But however, having said that, here's the businessman, I'm not. Obviously, one of the concerns would be that this extra space that becomes available could be, under different management, be used as an extra bedroom, frankly. I mean, there was, some years ago, I see there was an application for a 10-bedroom HMO, which was refused. And as I understand it, under this arrangement, it's got 6 bedrooms at the moment. So if you did want to increase the number of bedrooms from 6, you would actually need planning permission. On history, I mean, who knows, but that is likely to be refused rather than granted. So I suppose my concern, Chair, and I'd like some reassurance from officers, is given that there's space that's going to be reconfigured, what assurances do we have that this space won't be reconfigured unofficially, if I can put it that way, into providing another bedroom, which I think was Councillor Agar's question earlier on. That's the reassurance I want, because, you know, it is difficult, we all know, to monitor how many residents there are or what the living arrangements are for an HMO, because how do we enforce it? Who knows? Who's going to complain? Who's going to be standing outside watching? In other words, nobody will be. So it's got to be taken on trust. And there's a long planning history to this site. So it's really that reassurance that I would be more comfortable with before we proceed. Thank you, Chair.
Through you, Chair, we are confident in terms of the condition that's been proposed in terms of no more than 5 bedrooms. It's a 5-bedroom property at the moment, and that a condition has been proposed and accepted by the applicant that it's not going to be increased from the 5-bedroom properties. There are no history of complaints upon this property. We are happy that it is enforceable, that if there were to be increased residents, I think residents would notify us, and it is something that can be enforced. It's quite clearly to be able to see whether there is, how many bedrooms are in the property, and it is quite easy for the enforcement team to be able to check that. So we're quite comfortable that it can be a condition and that it can be easily enforced.
Chair, can Mr. Round just clarify that, because paragraph 7.11 says it currently has 6 bedrooms. He said Mr. Round just said 5.
It's definitely 5 beds, so I apologise for the mistake within the report. 5.
Councillor Kimberley?
I'm just observing on the page, and I've just been doing my mandated site check. I noticed there are 2 bedrooms marked as bedroom number 2 in the report. Is that possibly creating any confusion?
Through you, Chair, I think it possibly may be. That is for the flat that's adjoining it rather than for the HMO.
Yeah, so it's the fact that we've got 2 separate properties here. I mean, we've got a 5-bedroom and a 2-bedroom. Okay.
Point of clarity, really. Sure. Mr. Round, when you were talking about the not converting this into another bedroom, are you referring to condition 2 here? Because there are only 4 conditions, and I can't really see. I think there's a certain lack of clarity for me around it.
Through you, Chair, that's a very useful point. It was raised as part of the officer presentation. It's a verbal update, so it would be an additional. As part of the verbal update, there was 2 additional conditions. One was condition 5, which would be for landscaping, and the additional condition 6, which would be for no additional bedrooms, 5 bedrooms only. Yeah.
I'll move that or second it, whichever you want.
Oh, right. Are we finished with questions and debate then? Yeah, everyone's nodding. Okay, fine. So are you proposing, Councillor Amos?
Yes, because that is my concern, that that this space is not eventually or shortly or any time going to become another bedroom.
Okay, so with those two, is that for that condition or is it for the whole application? Are you moving for the application as a whole with those two new conditions? Are you moving to vote for this application with the additional landscaping and additional bedroom condition?
All I'm moving, Chair, is a condition that there's not going to be another bedroom in this property. I'm not moving the proposal itself steady on. I don't go that far.
I was surprised.
It's just about the sixth bedroom.
Okay, so we've got Councillor Agar to move the proposal.
We'll move the proposal, thank you, with those conditions.
With 5 and 6. Are you putting your hands up for seconding or for something else? Right, okay, well, I'll tell you what, I'm going to have Councillor Kinsley because she hasn't said anything yet on this application.
Thank you, Chair. I am bothered about this application. I think it's a real shame that we are potentially losing these small community shops. I really do, and it is on the edge of what is available. So there are people, elderly people, who will be very inconvenienced by this and will have to, I don't know how they'll get to the nearest shop. If they can't walk, they might have to then drive. It could cause all sorts of problems, and I think it is a worrying trend. Now, we have the applicant's word that it is unviable. We don't have any other evidence to that. We don't know. I'm not quite sure what we can do about it, but I just wanted to raise that as a concern. I don't think we should skate over that too lightly as we debate this. Thank you.
That's noted. Councillor Udall, did you want to say something?
Totally agree with Councillor Kinnersley, and I think that it's, as I said earlier, this has been a retail premises for as long as I can remember, and plus years before I was born, so it's at least 70 years. This has been here, and I have got deep concern that St John's needs shops, and St John's will be at a loss without shops. And we need to have that critical footfall to encourage people to come in to use the retail establishments in order for St John's to continue to thrive. So I am concerned about the impact this will have commercially on St John's. I'm concerned about the impact this will have socially in St John's. And I am not convinced it's the right move. I can understand the commercial aspects which Mr Minhas has brought to us, and I fully respect that. But as a community asset, it's something which is going to be significantly missed and lost by the people who live close to it, and for that reason I think this is very regrettable.
Yeah, we hear you, Councillor Udall, and I think we would all agree that losing a local shop is not a good idea and is a shame. But we know that there are trends in shopping. We know that people don't go to their corner shop as much. They're not as profitable as they were, and actually because of the planning system we've got Class E, which means it could be pretty much anything. You know, this is a planning system that's supposed to be supporting change, you know, so that we don't have empty shops, because that's the other problem with the market, isn't it? Councillor Rudge?
Thank you, Chair. My observation is that we do have to allow for the fact that people are creative and that there are market forces at work, and that if there's a big gap in the market for something new, retail-wise or other similar, I'm thinking, you know, I don't know, people deliveries or whatever, that someone will find it and take it. We can't manipulate or predict or prescribe even who should be dealing where. If a business is not viable, it's not viable. You can't force people to run a business that isn't viable. If there is a market, then I think someone will find it. Thank you.
Do I have anyone to second Councillor Agar's proposal at all? Councillor, I don't know, Councillor Stephen? Would you like to? Yeah, with the 2 amendments. So has anyone got anything else to say? Because I think we've probably expressed our regret, but I also can see the positives in the scheme. So it is about planning balance here, isn't it? Okay, so in that case, let's move to a vote. Can I see all hands in favour, please? Votes against and abstentions.
Okay, so that is carried. Thank you. Let's move to item 9. We've got, it's Carden Street. We've got the applicant, Adam Townsend, if you'd like to come forwards. We've got a request for a quick 5-minute break. So let's get set up for the next item and have a quick break. You're allowed to sit down, definitely. But we'll have a quick break for the YouTube. Thank you. Right, welcome back, everybody. So agenda item 9, we've got Rebecca presenting. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. So, agenda item 9 concerns the planning and advertisement consent applications for 14 Carden Street. Application reference 24/00851/FUL and 24/00943/ADV. So I'm controlling it now, yeah, thank you. Planning permission is sought for a change of use from use class B8 to snooker and pool hall, use class E. Advertisement consent is sought for a fascia sign with vinyl decals on the upper windows. The site contains a part single-storey, part two-storey detached building bounded by Carden Street to the north, Foundry Street to the east, and Carden Close to the west and south. The property was previously in use as a trade warehouse and car wash was vacant at the time of the submission of this application. Internal works not requiring planning permission have commenced during the consideration of the application. The site is not within a conservation area and does not contain any listed buildings. The site comprises 371.61 square metres of floor space, including an associated external area which is proposed to be used for parking and cycle storage. The Founds Hotel and City Walls Road are located to the west of the site, and the Worcester to Birmingham Canal runs from the southwest to northeast of the site, with the canal conservation area adjacent. To the north are more industrial units. The site is located within the Blockhouse Carden Street Opportunity Zone under policy SWDP 44/45 of the South Worcestershire Development Plan. This promotes redevelopment for a mix of uses, including residential, leisure, and other suitable uses. This shows an aerial view of the site, with the application site being the ground floor white building to the right. This shows another aerial image where the relationship between the site and the surrounding industrial estate is clearly shown, with the closest residential properties to the northwest on this slide. Other industrial units are to the south, along with the Founds Hotel. So just to pick up the residential units, they're on Lock Street and Park Street to the north. This slide shows a final aerial image where the site can be seen to the left of the slide, and the Founds Hotel and City Walls Road are to the north. So here we've got some officer site visit photos. So this shows the front elevation and also inside with where the small ancillary bar restaurant area is. These are some more photos from the outside. This slide shows the existing elevations from all sides of the building. And this slide shows the proposed elevations from all sides of the building and shows the proposed design changes and the content of the advertisement consent application, being new fascia signage and vinyl decals on the upper windows. This is a slightly larger view of the proposed north elevation to the front of the site. This slide shows the proposed site location plan at block plan and the proposed ground floor plan. The internal areas are clearly marked out with snooker and pool tables, a darts area, a kitchen, the toilets, including a disabled toilet, and the small ancillary bar and restaurant area. As shown on this slide, 8 car parking spaces are proposed to the rear of the site within the red line for customers, along with 2 disabled spaces to the front and 2 existing staff car parking spaces. There is also dedicated cycle storage proposed to the front and a barrel bike station immediately next to the site on the corner. In addition, you'll note the car wash site to the south, which is within the blue line of the application. And informally, it's my understanding that the Q Corner have agreed that their customers can park there after 5 during, I think it's weekdays and weekends. So there's an informal arrangement there as well. But it should also be noted that there is on-street parking in the vicinity and quite a number of public car parks. The cycle storage is also shown adjacent to the disabled spaces to the front of the site. And an image of the proposed type of cycle storage is shown on this slide, which is covered and has Sheffield stands. The next slide shows images of the internal fit out and layout. So this is to the front where the snooker and pool tables are. Another image from that same room. This shows the darts boards where they'd have a podium, because it's the intention for a variety of ages to compete at this venue in snooker, darts and pool. This slide shows the rear elevation of the building from the car parking area to the rear. This slide shows a view from the car park towards the existing car wash to the north, and the canal can also be seen in the distance to the right. This photograph shows the relationship between the site and the nearest residential properties, being Park Street and Lock Street to the west. So the key issues to consider in the determination of the application are the acceptability of the proposals, having regard to the principle of the change of use, impact on neighbouring amenity, design and highways matters predominantly. So the site is located within the Blockhouse Carden Street Opportunity Zone under policy SWDP 44/5 of the South Worcestershire Development Plan. This promotes redevelopment for a mix of uses, including residential, leisure and other suitable uses. Where single uses are proposed, the policy states in Part D that applications will be evaluated for their contribution and effect on the overall mix of uses in the area. On this occasion, the change of use from use class B8 to snooker and pool hall, use class E, is considered to be acceptable in principle. The proposed snooker hall and ancillary bar restaurant with darts is considered to be compatible with the surrounding uses, adding to and not diminishing the overall mix within the area. Although close to residential properties, appropriate conditions and other measures, including a noise management plan and a car parking management plan, have been submitted during the course of the application to ensure there is no adverse impact on residential amenity. In terms of the impact on Worcester City Centre, policy SWDP 9 and 10 of the South Worcestershire Development Plan state that new retail, leisure and tourism development that contributes to achieving a high quality, sustainable network of urban and rural settlements will be promoted and supported. Part A of policy 10 states that retail and leisure developments that are appropriate in location and scale, having regard to the hierarchy of centres, will be supported. Retail and other town centre development should be of a scale appropriate to its location. The proposed snooker hall with ancillary darts and restaurant bar use is considered to be a suitable town centre leisure use, which is appropriate in this location. It is not considered that this use would have any adverse impact on the vitality and viability of Worcester City Centre. The proposal has demonstrated that it will contribute to a comfortable, safe, attractive and accessible environment, provide a community use, and it makes use of vacant ground floor premises. The proposed change of use is less than 1,000 square metres, and as such there is no requirement for a retail impact assessment. The location of the site is outside the town centre but is within the opportunity area, which promotes mixed development including leisure. The proposal is acceptable having regard to the evening and nighttime economy. It will not result in any dead frontage during the daytime. It will not result in any unacceptable impact on neighbouring uses in terms of disturbance, traffic or safety, and does not on its own or cumulatively result in an inappropriate balance of uses. The site can also, as we've heard, accommodate 8 parking spaces to the rear, along with 2 disabled spaces and the 2 existing staff spaces to the front, as well as the cycle parking. The site's in a sustainable location within walking distance, approximately 0.6 miles and a 15-minute walk from both Worcester Shrub Hill train station and Worcester Foregate Street train station. And they also anticipate that people will be car sharing to this venue. It's also noted that there's a Beryl bike station immediately adjacent to the site on the corner. So the external changes to the building predominantly include replacement signage with a separate advertisement consent application which has been submitted, and this is being considered alongside the change of use application. Policy SWDP 21B highlights that consent will be granted for outdoor advertisements, provided the display will not adversely affect the amenities of the area or impact on public safety. This reflects the statutory requirements under the Advertisement Regulations 2007. In terms of impact on amenity, the replacement signage is predominantly in locations where signage previously existed and no illumination is proposed. There will be no unacceptable impact on neighbouring amenity because of the updated signage. So the proposal therefore accords with the development plan with regard to design and amenity considerations. It is also considered that the proposed change of use will not have any unacceptable impact on neighbouring amenity. The closest residential properties on Lock Street are approximately 40 metres to the southeast from the application site on the opposite side of the Worcester and Birmingham Canal. These are considered to be sufficiently well removed from the site that any associated comings and goings will not cause them any significant disturbance. The snooker and pool hall with ancillary bar, restaurants and darts is proposed to open between the hours of 11 a.m. to 11:30 p.m. Monday to Friday, Saturday between 10 and midnight, and on Sunday and bank holidays between 11 a.m. and 10 p.m. A noise management plan has been submitted with the application which outlines the measures the venue will take to minimise noise and other disturbances and how they will respond to any complaints effectively. Compliance with the noise management plan is secured by condition. It is considered that there will not be any unacceptable impacts with regard to odour, fumes, smells from cooking. Following consultation with Worcester Regulatory Services Nuisance, further details of mechanical cooking equipment and extract have been required and will further be dealt with via condition. And following their no objection response, it is concluded that the proposals are acceptable and in accordance with the development plan having regard to impact on neighbouring living conditions. And in terms of that, the distance of neighbouring properties is also relevant. So moving on to highways matters. The site is in a sustainable location and the surrounding areas are relatively densely populated. The site's within acceptable walking and cycling distances, meaning that patrons of the proposed facility would have a genuine choice on how they travel. In line with the Streetscape Design Guide, the parking requirement for the proposed snooker and pool hall with ancillary bar restaurant is 1 car parking space per 22 square metres, which equates to 17 spaces. A total of 10 car parking spaces for the snooker and pool hall are proposed, plus the 2 existing staff spaces, and that's within the boundary of the site. So although there is a shortfall, this can be offset by on-street parking and public car parks in the nearby vicinity in this particular instance. The site plan shows all on-site parking, and details regarding delivery and servicing arrangements are set out within the car parking management plan. So in particular, they've specified that deliveries will be weekly between 10 a.m. and 4 p.m. to the rear car park. Waste management will be between 9 a.m. and 4 p.m. And yeah, that's predominantly the delivery and servicing arrangements, but there is further detail within the car parking management plan. The plans show provision for 6 cycle parking spaces in line with the standards. The cycle parking will be implemented in accordance with the submitted details as secured by condition. Based on information available to the Highway Authority for the 3-year period from November 2021 to October 2024, there is no personal injury accident record in the locations, which covers the junctions with City Walls Road and Foundry Street. Accordingly, there are no existing highway safety concerns in this location which could be exacerbated by the proposed change of use. With regard to the advertisement consent application, as the signage largely replaces previously existing signage and there are no projecting signs, there is not considered to be any unacceptable impacts on public safety. Neither the Highway Authority nor the Canal and River Trust have provided any objection in respect of the advertisement consent application. So the proposals are therefore considered to be acceptable and in accordance with policies 4 and 21 of the South Worcestershire Development Plan. An informative is due to be attached regarding secured by design principles for security and crime prevention measures for the property. West Mercia Police have been consulted on the proposals and have advised that they have no concerns or objections. Details of refuse storage and waste management have been provided, and Worcester City Council Refuse Management have confirmed that no further action is required with regard to waste. So coming on to the planning balance, when considering the planning balance, social benefits include a community use, it being a snooker hall for those of all ages. The economic benefits include bringing people to Worcester and supporting the economy, which helps support vitality and viability of units within Worcester City Centre. And there's also environmental benefits associated with the scheme through employment and linked trips. The conditions are attached to help enhance it. All comments received as part of the consultation process have been considered along with all relevant material planning considerations. The proposed development is sustainable when considered in respect of its social, economic and environmental benefits and of course with the aims of the South Worcestershire Development Plan and the requirements of the NPPF. So officers have therefore concluded that subject to the recommended conditions, the proposals as detailed in the planning and advertisement consent applications are acceptable with regard to principle of development and change of use, design, impact on neighbouring amenity and highways matters, including public safety. Officers therefore recommend that the application is granted, both applications, the planning and advertisement consent applications are granted subject to conditions. And this concludes the officer presentation. Thank you, Chair.
Great, thank you, Rebecca. Okay, so we've got Adam Townsend, the applicant, here. Great, thank you very much for coming. You'll have 5 minutes and I will indicate when it's about 4:45 and then if you can finish by 5, that'd be great. Thank you.
Good afternoon, councillors. Thank you for the opportunity to speak today. It's going to be a lot for me to try and cram in within the 5 minutes, so I'll do my best. But since the demise of Riley's 5 years ago, there's been a huge decline in the snooker leagues, pool leagues, running down by half in the snooker. I think the youngest participant in the snooker league at the moment is 32, which has had a knock-on effect with the growth of both sports within the city, which Riley's has boasted a England international female that we're looking to sponsor, and another Ultimate Pool Pro. They're now in their mid-20s since Riley's has shut, and there's no new generation coming through due to the lack of opportunity in the area. The nearest place to go and play darts for juniors is Hales Owen, which we look to bring the Junior Darts Corporation to the Q Corner, which we're already in discussions with. We will be doing Saturday weekend snooker schools through governing bodies with the WST. I'm an avid pool player for the last 25 years, so just looking to sort of bring something back to Worcester that's been missing for quite some time. A lot of people have to now travel to Kidderminster. There's 3 areas in Kidderminster that you can go and play pool or snooker, which obviously is an ideal for, you know, the younger people to try and get involved with the Q sports. Obviously with the missing bit of the youth club in Worcester now, has certainly had a bit of an impact on opportunities in this sort of area. So it's a passion of mine. I've been charged now with trying to deliver something back and leaving a little bit of a legacy of, bringing, you know, some big opportunities. The reason with the Carden Street appealed to us on viewing of several different other places was access. So there's been a huge emphasis on disabled access around the tables. We'll be affiliated with the Ultimate Pool Tour series, which is now on TNT Sports. The venue will be graded, which for the amenity of obviously holding all diverse groups, basically, from female competitions to men's, juniors, and then across the same with darts as well as the snooker. The whole emphasis of putting the snooker, pool and the darts in there is to give all three missing elements in the city an opportunity to sort of, you know, revive itself and grow. So that's pretty much where we are with, yeah, just the element of just delivering something back, really, that, yeah, not having to drive to Kidderminster 4 days a week would be nice as well. So that's all.
Thank you very much. We were well within time. Well done. I'll open the floor for questions for Adam, please. Has anyone got anything? Okay, we'll start with Councillor Cross.
Thank you for coming. I note that the signage is not illuminated. Are there any changes to external lighting that are planned?
No, not currently.
Nothing external. Okay, I mean, as long as there's an adoption, obviously we're near the canal, you know, an accord with the good practice guides within the industry of lighting professional. So, you know, yes, there's one particularly about bats that's and lighting, but you know, all sorts of other ones as well. So I know inside it's really important for, you know, colour perception, and so you've got industry requirements, but also just that just to make sure we don't have overspill lighting coming outside. The other question was also roughly how many people would be on site, and are there just the 3 toilets? So the male, female, disabled cubicle. Love to hear.
16 with the dartboards included, potentially up to about 32 people in the venue at one time. So, but I mentioned on the canal side of the signage with the lighting, there'll be no any signage or anything on that back bit of the building. Everything's to the front of that section on actual Carden Street rather than to the rear.
I've got Councillor Udall, please.
Yeah, just a couple of quick questions. First of all, I'm admiring what you're doing. It's fantastic what you're proposing. However, can you said 32 people will be on site. Does that include employees?
Yes.
And how many employees would there be? And the maximum setting, and the maximum times, what would be the highest number of employees would there be on site at any one time?
On one shift, on a busy Saturday, probably in the regions between 4 to 6.
Okay. And you obviously done some market research. Can you confirm what would be the main form of transportation to the premises for your customers?
Well, the element of these sort of places surviving is obviously the element of, you know, serving drink and food and things like that. So the notion is that a lot of people will be walking with the location good to the town centre. The Beryl bikes, and of course, if anybody's really coming to drive, generally it's, you know, a car share sort of type thing, where you have the designated driver. So.
And this probably is an unfortunate question. The chair will rule me out of order if it is. Don't look so worried. Would you be willing to consider having a direct line telephone to a taxi company to help people get away in the evening? Or
Yes, so we've already got cards on the bar at the moment, ready to go with. I'm forgetting the taxi now. Cathedral cars.
Right.
So yeah, so there'll be some sort of.
But other taxi companies are available.
Sorry. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Thank you, Chair.
You're done? Okay, lovely. I've got councillor Barnes, please.
Thank you. I was thinking back at places I thought I knew as similar facilities, and I was thinking to Trinity Street, but I haven't been there for 25 years. So there was a place in Trinity Street upstairs that was a...
Yes. Very long time ago, yeah.
So
That was before Ryler's. The name of that eludes me as well.
It was the old co-op hall, wasn't it?
Yeah, upstairs, yeah.
I think actually, like Councillor Udall, it's going to be an enrichment of the recreational facilities for Worcester. And I think that signage is absolutely fine because it's not going to be very obtrusive. In fact, you'll drive past during daylight hours when there's no light behind it, and you probably won't spot it.
Yeah, we've had to put frosting on because on like a bright day or anything like that, you need it a little bit darker in there, so it's not so as intrusive when you're playing your shots and things. So.
I'm a little surprised that you think only 32 people will be in there if there's a darts match or something on.
Yeah. That's just on the rest of the tables. On a comp day, they could range up to 48, I think, is probably the maximum that I'd be able to get through within that time duration on 5 dartboards. So you're sort of governed by how many tables or units you've got as to on competition type things, how many you can sort of get through in a timely manner. So, yeah.
I've got councillor Kimberley. Am I? No? Or Kinsley? Sorry. one or the other. Or either of you.
Great, come on, thank you. Really pleased to hear about this as someone with 3 sons of a certain age. There will be, I think this is the sort of facility that Worcester really needs, so that's great. I just wanted to check, we were talking about the people and the numbers there at any one time. Is it going to be a drop-in type thing, or will you have to book in advance? I'm just thinking in terms of helping them manage the numbers. Thank you.
Yeah, so the drop-in side we'll sort of have no problem with, but booking will be probably advised. It's not, we will be doing a membership scheme, but it won't be just exclusive to members. So yeah, there'll be a big emphasis on, good deal rates for parents to bring their children along and things like that. So, yeah.
Got any other questions from anyone? Councillor Agar?
Thank you. Very briefly, although the police have said they don't have much of a concern around security, it may be that you feel or necessary to have some security lights or cameras. Are you intending to do that?
We've got cameras on the front and rear of the building, and internally we've actually upgraded the building somewhat in the sense of it has now got a full fire system in. The general electrics of the building's been done. We have an alarm system that's connected to 2 of our phones. So yeah, we've got 3 very large iron gates on all 3 of the entry doors as well. So yeah, with it being close to the canal, we have got to make sure that we're monitoring that as we go forward.
Councillor Cross?
Thank you. Picking up on the security cameras, do they have any form of lighting, or whether it's visible or infrared?
Infrared, just an infrared, yeah.
Perfect. I've just got a question. In the report, the highways officer said that the peak demand for the site is going to be outside the traditional 9 to 5 hours. Is that right?
Yeah, so predominantly, I mean, I think the agreement we've got with the car park for the car wash is from 3 p.m. So predominantly through, the pools leagues are Tuesday, Wednesdays, the dart leagues Tuesday, Wednesdays. So predominantly those times are after 5, 6 o'clock when those are sort of attending. The weekends can vary a little bit, but predominantly through 80% of that working week, it's going to be, after 5, 6 o'clock when people have finished work.
Councillor Udall?
Sorry. Oh, your turn. That's it. This may be covered because it's a thought which has only just occurred to me, and I'm just looking back through the notes to see if it's covered. But will there be any live screening television available of other sports in the premises? So, for instance, people can come and watch football matches or rugby matches or whatever. Is that going to be included within the plans?
Yes, so there's 14 TVs within the in the building. So every table's got a predominant TV. We'll be doing live streaming on games and things like that, so people can engage on Facebook Live. We're doing that for the darts, the snooker, and the pool. And then there's an 85-inch TV in the actual bar area where people just come and relax and watch.
Which is good news. Yeah, I'll admit here and now that I've never played snooker, pool, or darts. Rugby was my sport. But can you confirm if the television screens and television will have a volume control, which will be at a maximum level, so it doesn't disturb anybody else?
Externally or
Yeah, externally, yeah.
Yeah, so obviously there will be, the noise management plan will consist of that, and then will be obviously dished out to the staff as well of a certain time of when those need to be sort of volume controlled.
Yeah, thank you.
I've got Councillor Cross.
Thank you. I'm surprised no one's sort of made any puns about right on cue yet, but sorry, but sorry to open that. But I just wanted to understand about your opening and peak active hours. Yeah, so obviously when you open to, and then when's your peak times? That'd be good to know. Thank you.
So yeah, the peak times predominantly will be between 5:30 and 10:30, 11 o'clock of an evening. Saturdays, predominantly, I'm hoping to be busy throughout the day. But yeah, it's an evening type thing, and normally winter as well. These generally sports that are done through the winter and not so much when the sun's shining. So yeah.
I've got Councillor Smith.
Thank you, Chair. You've mentioned that there are only 3 toilets. I was wondering if that's going to be sufficient at peak times, if there are a lot of people in there. Have you got any plans for perhaps putting some more in?
Yeah, so that's probably of the renovation that we've done inside. That is probably going to be the first thing that we're probably going to be upgrading and looking to do something with, definitely. The main emphasis, really, what we wanted to do was to be putting a disabled toilet in for the access, for appealing to all diverse groups, and there's a huge market in the juniors coming in and progressing the game, as well as there's a lot of female that are taking up the game. So yeah.
Councillor Agar.
Thank you. This isn't precisely a planning matter, but it sort of inversely is. You've got a lot of television screens, and of course you'll need a television licence for those, but you will also need a licence from the licensing committee, because it's classed as entertainment. Yes. And I wasn't sure if you knew that, because planners are really only concerned with amenity. We're not concerned with the licensing regime, but you will need that.
Yeah, we've already got the licences for music and entertainment. Yeah, all the Worcester regulatory services and the premises licence is all complete and done. So yeah, it's just this one.
Great. Any more questions? Are we done? We're done? Okay. Thank you. If you'd like to step back. Thank you very much for coming. We really appreciate it. I think it's been really useful. Has anyone got a question for officers, please? Councillor Amos.
Thank you, Chair. Well, it's a comment merged into a question. First of all, I think it's excellent application. I think we're making heavy weather of it, but good luck on your venture. I noticed in paragraph 7.20, it requires 17 parking spaces, but only 10 are being provided. But my view is that since we now have a cabinet member for highways who's gone AWOL, and since the county rarely apply their own streetscape design guide anyway, I'm not going to make a fuss on this occasion because it's utterly pointless to do so. But I would have thought that there would be, would there not, adequate parking in the immediate vicinity given the location of this particular site. So for that reason, I won't make a fuss, plus the fact that it won't make any difference anyway. But I'm very happy to support this application, Chair.
Thank you very much, Councillor Amos. Councillor Agar?
I think it's a terrific community facility. We haven't got one like it for miles, as the gentleman has said, Mr. Townsend. So it's great to see this coming into Worcester. It's a new facility, and it's well thought through, I think. So then there is plenty of parking available just around the corner off Carden Street and a bit on Carden Street as well. So long as it doesn't spread out into the other narrow streets nearby, we'll be fine. So I think this is excellent, and I'm happy to propose.
Thank you, Councillor Agar. That's absolutely brilliant. Yeah, and I suppose the things as well, what I want to say was with the Beryl bikes there, that's really good for young people actually who don't even own their own bike. You know, it's great. Councillor Cross, are you? Oh, that's wonderful. Great. Councillor Udall?
I've carefully considered what's been said. I'm looking desperately to try and say something negative. I can't find it. So I'm more than happy for us to proceed to the vote and support this application. It's brilliant.
Right. I'm seeing lots of nods. Councillor Rudge?
Thank you, Chair. Can I propose an inter-party pool competition?
Yeah.
Possibly with a fourth team made up of officers, if Mr. Round would like to sort that out.
Yeah. You don't. Let's not say that. No. Yeah, Councillor Rudge. I think I'd win that actually. I'm pretty good at pool. Right. Let's move to a vote. Can I see? We've got two applications here actually, so we need to make that very clear. We've got the full application. So let's do that first. We've got Councillor Agar proposing, Councillor Cross seconding. Can I see all votes in favour, please? Great, that's unanimous. And now we'll do the vote for the advertising application. This is the advertisement consent. I think we should have a different proposer and seconder, but maybe, yeah, let's have a bit.
I'm different, Chair. I don't often propose anything, so take it while it's going.
Yeah. Okay, Councillor Owens, why don't you propose and Councillor Barnes, you second, because then it's different, isn't it? We like that. Is that okay? Yeah. I'm seeing nods. Okay, so let's see. Based on that, no changes, no extra conditions. Right. Okay. Right. So see all votes in favour, please. Oh, and that's unanimous too. Wonderful. Thank you. Right. I've got no extra business. So I'm going to close the meeting. Thank you very much, everyone.